Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call a regular meeting, Wallingford Inland Watercourse Commission to order. The date is Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018, and the time is 7:02. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call. Ally?
Eileen McKean.
Nick Kern.
Jim Vitale?
David Parent.
Deborah Phillips.
Erin O'Hare, Environmental Planner. And Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a note again, because some new people have come into the room. There's a sign-up sheet going around. If you would sign your name and address and make sure I can read the spelling. And if you're with a company, the title in the company and the company name. Thank you.
Okay, but Erin, what are you going to use the sign-up sheet for?
Oh, the recording secretary is not here. She usually runs around and gets all the spelling, and we usually don't have this many people.
But that's for people who speak in the microphone, correct?
Oh, yes. You're not compelled to write your name in the pad unless you want to be recognized or give testimony tonight, or if you're going to present tonight. If you're presenting an application, I would like to get your name so I can get the spelling right in the minutes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we go into consideration of the minutes, I want to announce that there's not a lot of items on the agenda, but there could be some very long items taking a long time tonight. We're not going to spend all night here. Somewhere in the 10:30 bracket, we'll probably start to close down. So we're going to move the meeting along. We're not going to try and shortchange anybody. But if you don't get heard tonight, you'll be heard next month on it. Okay, consideration of the minutes. This is the minutes of the regular meeting of September 5th, 2018. Is there any comments regarding the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that that the minutes of the regular meeting of September 5th, 2018 at 7 p.m. be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Call for the vote. Ally?
Yes.
Nick?
Abstain.
Dave?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, we're going to go on. This is a continuation of the public hearing from last month. This is application A18 6.2, 5 Research Parkway in Wallingford. And the company is 5 Research Parkway, Wallingford, LLC. I'll turn it over to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For your record, again, my name is Dennis Senaviva. I'm an attorney with the Senaviva Law Firm in Meriden. I represent the owner and applicant. To my left is Michelle Carlson, a project engineer with BL Companies, and to her left is Emil Paredes, also an engineer with BL Companies. As you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, this is a continuation of the public hearing. This is our third shot at it, where hopefully the third time is the charm. You may recall at the September meeting, there was an offer by the applicant to pay for a erosion and sediment control enforcement officer based upon some recommendations of town staff and the chairman. And during the course of that meeting, Mr. Chairman, you noted that you were looking for that individual to also provide a report this evening with regard to the erosion sediment control plan. And so I would think, it's up to you, Mr. Chairman, it's your meeting, but I would defer to Mr. Cotter, who has completed that report, and then we can address some of the changes that have been made to the plan based upon the month of communication with that independent individual.
Okay, so you're suggesting that the outside consultant make the presentation on what changes he found and what you people have agreed to?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cotter, your name and address and all that good stuff.
George Cotter, CW International, LLP, 2091 Highland Avenue, Cheshire, Connecticut. I got in a report today that Aaron, I believe, has distributed to the commission. I'm going to go through the report. On September 17th, was contacted by Aaron that the commission and the applicant were looking to have a peer review of the E&S plans presented at the September 25th meeting. On that day, I received the drawings from Aaron and all pertinent information that was submitted at that meeting. Subsequently, on September 24th, there was a revised set of documents listed in a transmittal to Aaron from BL companies, and basically that was the outshoot of their September meeting modifications that they made to the plans. And again, we had a meeting, staff and BL, on September 26th, and subsequently on September 28th, last Friday, I received a revised set of E&S plans, which I have reviewed for tonight's meeting.
Excuse me just a minute, George. Aaron, I think we may be short one report
Did
from
CW?
CW.
I got it.
Well, Nick doesn't have one.
Okay.
I wonder if I got two.
Find one.
Anything stuck together or stapled together?
I just went through it 3 times.
Well, she should have it.
She's got it.
Thank you.
Anything else? It's in that clip 6
Well-
document package.
That you handed out tonight?
Yeah.
That's not it.
Well, maybe it's in the other group.
We're good.
Okay, I'm sorry, George, go ahead.
The review was done to, so that the commission would have, if I felt the plans were adequate for the E&S, and also I was asked to propose an E&S bond. In the letter, I summarized what was being done on the site. It's 178 or 79.8 acre parcel. They're proposing to build roughly 1.1 million square feet of warehouse. They have boiled down to 457 square feet of wetland filling, and 63,733 square feet of upland disturbance. The property rises roughly from 340 to 465. The parking lots that are proposed are roughly at 398 and 408 respectively. There will be large cuts on the east side that will be transferred down to the west side and in underneath where the buildings will be constructed. They have worked on it so that the site is roughly a balanced site with a small amount of fill that will be removed. The existing buildings will be demolished except for the daycare facility. On this site, the present Bristol-myers has no formal stormwater management system with oil separators and grit separators. This plan has 3 locations for sand filters, one at the north end that will discharge into the wetlands. The detention basin on the south end for building 2, that will also have a sand filter. And at the present axis that goes up to the existing building, they'll have a 3rd sand filter that will discharge into one of the ponds. The amount of wetland disturbance has been kept to a minimum, and the upland review areas will be revegetated, except for where they'll have the walls and the parking lots. The site requires, it's a living, breathing thing. Their plan is in 4 phases. The first being the demolition, but the coordination between the owner and the owner's representative, the engineer, the contractor, staff, and the erosion person inspector that you're going to put on site is going to have to be a coordinated effort to make adjustments to the plan as issues seem to arise or areas of concern come up. The erosion plans are for sheets EC0 to EC45. The first phase is they added a demolition phase since the last meeting. Those are on EC43 to EC45. There will be the large pond and small pond will be drawn down. We will use these as additional sediment basins during construction. It allows us to have what I will later describe as control points, places where we squeeze the discharge points down to either a pipe or a footbridge, and we have control of the water leaving those areas. Once that initial silt fence, their sandwich silt fence is installed, the basins, 2 basins are installed, then they can start the demolition phase. Phase 1 of the plans is shown on EC0 to EC12. At that time, all perimeter erosion shall be installed prior to any work. They can then do the clearing and grubbing that they will need to do for areas where it's vegetated. They will install, actually before the clearing and grubbing, they will install the temporary sediment traps, 1 through 9A, and the detention basin they list as 100. These will be set up, and at that time they'll construct the stone entrances, and once that is completed, they can they can do their earthwork, which would be to start excavation at the top and start the filling down on the west side along the wetlands, where they will build the walls, the 2 retaining walls, 1 for building 1, 1 for building 2. As they're doing the slopes, they will stabilize the slopes, and steep slopes will get erosion blankets. And again, each phase, all parties will maintain an ongoing process to analyze if additional measures are needed to protect the site and the wetlands. Phase 2 was shown on EC13 to EC25. This is the phase that will bring the fill up roughly to finished grade, but it still will sheet flow to the west. They have these sediment basins, and as they're filling from phase 1 and raising the grade along the west with the wall, the basins will be raised accordingly so that we can still discharge to the control points that they have designated on the plans. We will use a plunge pool and a channel to get to the wetlands on the far north. There will be 2 of the pipes that they initially install along building 1 that will be used as a discharge from some of the temporary sediment ponds. And in my final recommendations, I've requested that Basin 13 in phase 2, which was flowing in the channel to the plunge pool they added, discharge back towards one of the pipes that they had brought underneath the wall. So they have all the things that I have requested in my recommendations, they have said that they would implement. Phase 3 is shown on EC 26 to EC 36. This is the phase of installation for the site utilities, internal retaining walls, and building foundation. E&S measures in Phase 2 will be utilized to control the discharge of the stormwater from the site. The sand filter basins can be used as additional sediment basins as you bring the site to the final grade. At that time, they'll start installing in the areas where they finally made final grade up around the buildings. They will do the utilities, the storm, water, gas, and sewer. On the site, there are 5 control points that I feel are an immense value to the control of the quality of stormwater runoff from the site. The first is at the footbridge, which is in the central part of the property that goes from the north access road to the daycare. It crosses a footbridge with a roughly 8-foot opening. It comes out of the wetland area to the north that the stormwater is discharging to in 3 different locations. That point, with the approval of use of flocculants by the water department, we can control the water running through there with flock logs, and that will drop out the sediment that if it had gotten in there and that far. The second control point is an existing manhole east of the small pond. This is picking up discharge from 2 sediment traps to the east, and in Phase 2 will discharge there. In Phase 3, the sand filter will be constructed, but not with the sand. It'll just be basically a sediment basin with a discharge control. That basin will discharge to the control point at the north end of the large pond. Control point number 3 will be the discharge from the large pond. They will use the 30-inch drawdown pipe to discharge through there. They also will be able to put flock logs in there to purify, to get the sediment, if there is any in the water that doesn't want to drop out, to coagulate and then drop out at that point. There is a small pond just to the east of it, or the west of it. And the 4th control point is the discharge from the detention basin. That will control the flows of water coming off of the southern site and building that will discharge down to the Muddy River. And the 5th area is there's a fish grate and basically a trash rack at the very southwest corner of the Muddy River as it leaves the property. That is the last point where we would have control of the water and be able to use flock logs in there. From our September 26 meeting, there were a number of requests by staff to make changes to the plans. Those came back in the set of plans for in the September 28th set. We requested the riprap channels be added at the ends of the diversion swales as they go down the 3-to-1 slopes into the sediment traps. In doing that, they've got them on the inlet and outlet riprap pads. When we do that, they are able to use granular flock material to place in the riprap as it goes down into the basin. The water filters through that, and you're going to drop out the particulates in the said basins. They will also place flock logs in the diversion channels that they have constructed to pick them up as quickly as they can if there's sediment moving in the water. We added a sediment trap in phase 2, which is number 19. This area didn't really have any control through a sediment trap, so they've added that in phase 2, and it discharges to the, I believe it's the roof drain pipe that goes out to the wetland area is shown there. That basin is in phase 2. In phase 1, they didn't show any set trap in that area, so I requested that they add one there, and they have agreed that that will be added to the plan. Along the south end of the properties into the detention basin, they were picking up the roof runoff in a double CB. In looking at that, to me, it seemed to be a concern I had that with the amount of area of the roof for that building, that a double CB could clog and would become ineffective as to get the water into the permanent detention basin. They have since modified that and put a flared end and a pipe that will pick up the water coming down the swale into the upper end of the forebay for the detention basin. They've also agreed in that swale that they will armor that swale with erosion blankets so that it's not unprotected from the discharge from the roof runoff. A general note was added to install granular flock as required and before all big storms at rip inlets and outlets for the sediment traps and stormwater basin. Flock logs will be added to the dam spillway and the 30-inch drawdown pipe, and that refers to ECs 10, 23, and 36. Flock logs will be added to the existing manhole in phase 2 at the end of the diversion swale to the small pond. The water from the 2 basins in phase 2 that are there near the 2 ponds are discharging into an existing manhole structure that will be converted with a catch basin top. Additional control measures were added to phase 3 plan. Stone check dams were added in swales. The berm will remain in the detention basin throughout construction. Water bars were added where appropriate, and notes were added to keep the detention basins draw down throughout construction. Stone check dams have been added to all diversion swales in all phases of work. Temporary berms will be maintained in the detention basin throughout all phases. That's on EC 31. The existing ponds will be drawn down during construction to allow for additional storage and contingency. Temporary stockpiles with hay bale rings have been added next to the sediment traps for dewatering the traps for storm events. That's important that if we've got, their normal skimmer is a 2-day drawdown. If we coming up on storms, we need to pump them down so that they're dry to start the storm, not full of water. Sometimes there will be particulates in that water you're pumping, and they added ENS so that the water goes through a silt fence before discharging. Also further in notes, I made a recommendation for the person that the town has advised the town before on the use of the flocculants on other projects with difficult soils. The note on sheet 44 was added addressing dewatering. Notes were added to sheet 39 regarding measures to be undertaken if construction was halted to winter weather conditions. And then lastly, I came up with a list of recommendations that I feel are important for the successful project going forward. The pre-construction meetings should be held prior to any work on the site, attended by the construction site supervisor, the engineer, the contractor, staff, and the erosion person. The discussion will include how the parties involved will coordinate responses to issues raised by staff and how information on site would be transmitted to the town departments involved. It will determine how weekly site inspection reports and rain event reports would be delivered to the town. The contractor will understand that unforeseen problems with the E&S measures will be addressed immediately. The contractor shall follow the plans for installation of the E&S measures. It is understood that temporary sediment traps shown on the plan will be moved and raised as the fill is brought up in the different phases. The contractor shall install any additional measures deemed necessary by the engineer or town staff in order to protect the wetlands and the watershed. The construction contingency plan, which they have submitted recently for major storm events and emergency spills, shall be followed. Prior to start of demolition, the engineer shall have Deborah Seavey of DNS Site Management LLC review the soils on the site, which I believe she already has, and the E&S plans for uses and location of flocculants on site. She also review uses and methods of dewatering turbid water in the sediment basins and sediment traps. That's if we got to do an emergency drawdown. She has advised on another site that I was involved in inspecting on for the town at the time. She's set up a cut tube, a 36-inch pipe. All water was pumped into the pipe, and flock logs were placed in the pipe, and basically we got clean water coming out of the other end. There will be an erosion inspector on site that the town departments will choose that will review erosion measures and has the ability with the project design engineer, town departments, and owners representative to direct the contractor to implement an erosion measures deemed necessary to protect the wetlands and Mackenzie Reservoir. The E&S plans they're not minimal protections, but they are the start protections that will be necessary to start work. And it is understood that any intermediate measures necessary will be implemented as construction proceeds. There was concerns from Aaron about the large cuts and possible rock cuts, bleed outs from those. What we will do is, if we do have that condition, we'll install a diversion swale and the water will be directed to appropriate discharge point. The weekly E&S inspection reports will be filed with the Wetlands Office, along with pre- and post-storm reports. The sediment basin, that a sediment basin be added in phase 1 in the location of sediment trap 19, which I've already discussed. The sediment trap 13 discharge to the outlet pipe for the roof drainage instead of the plunge pool near the sediment trap 11. And I reviewed with DNL the necessary steps if the contractor was to be off the job and the site was left open, what would be the measures necessary to secure the site, stabilize it, so that there wouldn't be any adverse runoff. And I came up They came up with a bond amount of $296,419, which I reviewed and agree is sufficient in place. The plans that they have presented is a horizontal site, not a vertical site. There's been talk of doing work in only 5-acre areas, and that is just not feasible in order to build the 2 buildings as the size they are, with the amount of grade change that has to go from the high side to the low side, and to bring the roads and utilities in. You're going to have this site open, but the work will progress in stages where they're working in one area. If you're in a cut, you're completing this stabilization, and if you're in the fill, you're doing the same thing adjacent to the wetlands before you start building the walls on the outer perimeter. I don't believe it could be constructed in small 5-acre areas to where you'd be near completion. What you will have is they have broken it down with the 10 sediment traps and the detention basin, that they have broken the areas down so that the direct discharge to a sediment trap is limited to roughly 5 acres. And there's the areas and how they created the initial diversion swales, which if we find that there needs to be more, we want to limit the flow, they can be added to the plan as construction proceeds. I handed in the bond schedule. That's the last page. And if you got any questions, I'm ready to answer.
George, I think this concept of using the existing pond area there in this sediment control is correct, but I don't quite understand on how this pump down or this drawdown is going to work. Is there existing pipes in there now in the...
A 30-inch pipe that they've used to draw it down before.
Now, draw down, is that, when you say draw down, you're going to draw it down to nothing? You're going to empty the bottom and just have the water course going through the center?
Yes.
Okay, and that pipe is going to stay open, and the flow of water going in there, that outlet, that 30-inch outlet structure is going to be your metering device to let it out?
Yes.
So that's basically going to stay open for the construction period?
Can I answer that?
Yes.
Michelle Carlson, licensed professional engineer, state of Connecticut, worked for BL companies. It's going to be open to draw it down, and then it's going to be closed so that something catastrophic can't end up going down the pipe. As the pond fills up and the water's getting clean, we'll keep drawing it down, and before any storm events, it'll be drawn down all the way. So it's not going to be wide open all the time, so dirty water can just fly through it. I mean, this measure is supposed to be a last stop. Hopefully everything ahead of it is working correctly, and this is just a final stop for the water before it leaves the site. But it's not going to stay open the whole time. It's going to have to be exercised and open and closed based upon the conditions and the weather.
So somebody has got to be in charge of maintaining this drawdown concept.
Correct.
So in other words, if it refills of clean water, you got to open the piping in.
Correct.
And how long will it take to drain that pond?
To draw it down, there's not that much water in there now. There's a couple of feet of water. It's not very deep.
So you think that it will hold the necessary water from a storm event, an E&S event?
Yes, because you also have all the controls above, and these ponds are sized for the 100-year event.
Well, the controls above, you should have almost clean water in that
Exactly.
last pond.
Exactly.
So the gate could be open,
It
or
could be.
partially open, or something.
It could be, but I think you have to use common sense. We just don't want anything, to happen downstream.
And then, did you indicate, thank you, did you indicate that you're going to physically pump down some other areas? Or retention ponds you're going to
No.
pump out?
If we've got all the sediment traps, we're in in the 2-day roughly that the skimmer takes to draw that thing all the way down, if they're full when we're about to get hit with a storm, we're going to want to see if we can dewater those and use them as a point to let the sediment drop out before it goes out of the sediment trap.
So you're going to have actual pumps there to pump them dry?
They should have, yes.
If needed, I mean, that would be a situation where there's a back-to-back storm
Right.
coming, or there's a concern we need to draw that down for the capacity. I don't foresee that being normal at all.
I didn't say normal.
Right, correct. More catastrophic situation,
They will have the ability to do that.
correct.
Mr. Chairman, while we're on the drawdown pipe, we have a lot to discuss tonight, but I just want to insert something. Michelle, what is or George, whoever knows, that pipe, what level is it set at? Is it set like at the bottom of the pond or like a foot up?
Oh, it's right about the elevation of the bottom. Yeah, it's right about the elevation of the bottom, just a little bit above. It's not sticking up a foot. It'll draw the pond down.
All right, so I'm just thinking, since at some point that water will be dirty, is it possible to like modify that so like a riser pipe or something so it's getting the top layer of water and not the bottom layer of water sucking it out of the pond?
I think we're just gonna have to see. I mean, like I said, that water technically by the time it gets there should be clean. I mean, we have flock logs up above if we need them during rain events. We have sediment traps. We have more stone berms. We've added, water bars on steep drives. We've added check dams in the diversion ditches, stone before it enters the trap. I mean, that's a last line of defense. I just don't see that that's necessary. We don't want to put a pipe in there. We want the ability to draw it down.
Okay. All right, ask the question. Ally, you have any questions? Nick?
So when you open that, I just want to start with the 30-inch pipe you just talked about. You open that up, all the fines and silt that's at the bottom of that pound, you say it's only maybe 2 feet deep. It's like a vacuum. It's going to suck everything down into your 30-inch pipe and run it downstream. How do you prevent the silts or the fines that are trapped there right now from going downstream and polluting the neighbors down south of you?
We're going to have flock logs in there. We're going to have flock logs down by the trash rack. There's also a trash
Just
rack.
stop a minute. I think what Nick is talking about, you're sending clear water down because you're only emptying the pond to collect the water that might have the flock in it.
Correct.
So he wants to happen if you open that gate up right now. The sediments that's in the bottom of the pond, and correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right, Jim.
The sediments that are there right this minute, if you open that gate, are they gonna go down to Spring Lake?
You're not going to open it full bore and just whoosh, have all the water go down. I mean, you're going to draw it down very slowly. For the initial drawdown to get it down, we're going to draw it down slowly, and we're going to draw it down when it's, been dry for a period of time. So it should be fine. I don't think that that's going to be a problem. If you opened it wide open, then it's going to take everything down with it. You have to control the drawdown. You have to monitor it. We'll be able to see what's coming down before it even gets, into the next control area.
So if the weatherman lies, he tells you it's going to be a 1-inch storm and we have to get in a 4-inch storm, and you've got the site opened up, the last call is your pipe to drain down so the water can come from above down into that lower pond. My question is how, George talked about you shut it off, you're going to run it through sed fence filtration to get the discoloration of the particles out of the water. None of it makes sense. I don't understand how you size this project. Did you size this project by the book or by past history of this types of soil and what the footprint is of this, what you want to do?
We've sized it in accordance with the regulations for sediment
Regulations.
traps.
So now we're going by regulations because 25 years ago we went by regulations and we had a major disaster. I'm not pinpointing this to you, Michelle, but I'm just saying, did we take into consideration history of the site, or we go, the book says we do this, we do this?
We've gone above and beyond the book. I mean, if we just went by the book, we wouldn't even have the plan we have before you today. I mean, and George can probably, chime in whenever he wants. We've gone above and beyond because of the sensitivity of the soil types, of the project, of the downstream resource. The ponds are drawing them down as a belt and suspenders measure. I mean, we could keep these controls as they are, and we think we could leave the ponds how they are and not have a problem. But we're drawing the pond down so we have that extra capacity just in case we get a 4-inch storm and then another 4-inch storm, that pond can fill up. That's why we're drawing it down. We're not drawing it down because we need it to get clean water. We're drawing it down as a backup if there's a big storm event, that we have capacity to then have that water in there to settle. That's the theory behind drawing it down. It doesn't have to be drawn down for our plan to work.
You want the water to be as clean and as clear going out of that 30-inch pipe heading downstream as possible. I understand that.
Yes.
But what happens if the upstream fails, the sizing's not right? You're taking the book sizing and you're footprinting it onto this property. What do you do when that fails? George talks about a $300,000 in case the contractor's not there for the weekend. You should take that $300,000 and maybe put that back into the design, a fail-safe design on the whole parcel, so you don't have to worry about it. There is no what if happens if the contractor's not there in the weekend. I just don't feel comfortable that, I don't know.
That wasn't what I meant to say. It's if, for whatever reason, the contractor isn't on site, it's gone. There's nobody there to do any work, nobody to do any protections. That's the E&S bond that will pay for the stabilization of the whole site so that it can be left as is.
Before the storm or after?
Not during a storm event. The contractor is going to be available at all times on site during storm events. And what that is for is if he's not the contractor of record anymore and there's nobody there to do any of the E&S work, then you've got that bond as seeding and stabilization, flock logs, and they've spelled out in there what we would need to stabilize. 10% of the initial installation of silt fences in there, so that if we have breakdowns of the silt fence, you got the repair money to put them back into place.
Where are they going, George?
They would go back into any place where there's an issue with a discharge getting off. A fence got knocked down, or we had an erosion up against the fence and it failed. You'd restabilize it. Or if we had an area that we needed additional silt fence, then you would be using that to place. The initial site has all the E&S in place on the perimeter of the property, basins in, and then you're going to go start your work.
I wasn't able to be here last month, but I watched the meeting on TV 3 times, and they talked about the nature trail to the west. Is that part of your sizing? So if there is an issue, once you start your construction, that's going to be the area that's going to catch all the fines and the landslide or the mudslide when it starts to take effect?
Your discharge, you haven't got that large a surface area that they are creating between where the wall is and the toe slope. Those are to be stabilized as they work through one area with the erosion blankets put on as soon as they've got the slope in place. When you get up to the wall, you're going to have the wall as your barrier. You've got control points where they're going to discharge water from pipes that they put in and from an area where they discharge into a plunge pool. You're not going to have a whole large open slope before you start the construction of the wall along the west side of both roads, or both wetland areas, or both buildings. And that's got to be their first step. And what they'll do is they'll bring the set basins will raise up as they start to build that wall, or when they created the first fill up to where the wall will start. So you're going to get that edge. What you have in there is a large wetland, and that comes down to that first choke point on that trail, which is a footbridge, is about 8 feet wide. So you now have got control of water coming out of that wetland. And that would be with besides what's being is being used on site, that's where you would be able to say, okay, I got this water trapped, and I'm able to put the flock logs in, and this will work to clean that water if there's anything in it. The wetlands itself, if you've got just discolored water, you're going to use that. That is a natural filter system that is available. And the soils on that north end, from what I've seen so far, are kind of sandy, gravelly soils. They don't seem to be the red soils that we've all seen from different areas on site.
Is there any perk rate to them?
Any what?
Perk rate, with the percolation. If for some reason you have to use that as your storage capacity area for stormwater, what's the rate of perk? It's going to be moved downstream to the lower ponds to be discharged off the site, or it's going to sit there and dissipate itself into the soils?
That's for right now. We haven't put any kind of a restriction that would inhibit the water from going through there on its own, but that's always a consideration, that you could put something that would slow it down when it actually wants to discharge through there. I think you've got a big enough flat wetland in there that you're going to have, it's going to take a while for water that we're discharging up on the northern end to discharge down to that point.
All right, George, so we've had our love-hate relationship over the years. I want you to tell me that you're comfortable with the footprint that they're going to use for the stormwater, I'm going to call it storage, maybe that's not the right word, but the stormwater storage on this site is going to be handled accordingly and properly, and there's no chance it's going to get down and go contaminate outside the property.
My belief is they've got a plan in place that will do that, but we also have the ability to modify the plan as we go, as we see how the site conditions are actually working. I've never been on a site where we've had a large amount of area open that we didn't have to engineer on site. Some things that a small snippet of a situation where you're building that you don't need to add something to that particular area. And basically you've got a team that between the engineers, the owner, the contractor, staff, and the person you put out on site is to make sure all of these things are working during the construction. And where things seem to be that we could have a problem, you're going to implement additional measures. You could even add sed basins, sed traps in an area where you didn't see any need for one, put one in. And that's the measures you've got. A very large detention basin for the south end of the project is where you're going to discharge most of your stormwater runoff. I've added stone dikes in that. We've had discussions to build the forebay, because if you put the granular flock in there, it's got to run through the riprap. It picks up and just drops out. And I've done it on soils that before where you could leave it sitting on the table for 3 months and it looked the same as the day you did. You drop the flocculant in with it and it goes clear in a minute or two. So the use of it, as long as it's approved by the water department, the type and specific flocculant that they would feel comfortable with, then we're going to use it on site. And the issue will be is, how are we controlling the water? And if there's an additional way we got to make a discharge point, then that'll be added. I mean, we've got pipes that we're bringing out all along there, except all the water most of the water on the south side is directed to that detention basin. We added, where they're going to construct the road between the two ponds, we added a small sediment trap at the end of that, because that is basically picking up that first piece of road they got to build and you got to fill. So we've added one down there in that vicinity that is coming off off the road. So I think I believe they've got a good plan. It has to be built horizontally. You can't get up to the finished grade where you got to be open to put your utilities in. They will button up with a binder course where they can. They're at finished grade. That they'll get that down. But you've got to bring utilities to the two different buildings. You got to put your storm drains in, and you really can't start that construction until you've brought the project up near grade in order to be able to put those utilities in.
All right, so what are you going to do with the spoils if we have a 3-day rainstorm, or if they're working through their construction into the wet season of the year? What are you going to do with the spoils that can't be compacted or can't be used behind the walls or a footprint? You're going to use whatever you're going to use for fill. Those spoils, where are those going to be stockpiled?
You're going to have to, you've got an open enough area on site that you just create you can create piles, and you can put set erosion controls around them, and you can use them as a stockpile. They do show stockpiles in the brown on the drawing throughout the site as where you're going to be putting spoils. You've got 4 on the south end, and I think you probably got 4 on the north end. So they've designated areas to put spoils. Also, the materials you're going to be moving, you've got a certain amount of maybe ripped ledge. If you've got materials that aren't your best, if they've left by themselves, you can mix them in with the stuff you're crushing. You've got the building demolition materials that are going to be used on site in the project. So there's a lot of different ways to and I believe the north end, the soils on that are nice, are actually nice soils. They're not what we've seen, I believe, that are some in the southern end of that project. The Weatherfield soils are up along the east in that hillside, and that's where would be diligent in additional measures if we're finding that we got a problem. And you're gonna be able to know whether you got issues or not, and that's why it's a living thing that you just keep modifying after what you got. But you got a big detention basin that goes in first, and you're going to put stone dikes in there to create 4 bays where you're going to drop material out. And then you got the outlet structure as your last chance place where you can control with flock vents too.
All right, so am I understand you, Michelle, that the only discharge point from that site will be the 30-inch pipe that you're going to control open and close? Or there's other sites?
No, there's other discharge point behind you from that temporary sediment basin. Okay, that's going to go downstream of the large pond. And then the existing ponds, I just want to be clear so there's no confusion. The existing ponds, they're really a belt and suspenders for us. We've designed the controls on the site to work and do what they're supposed to do before the water gets to those ponds that we're going to draw down. We're just fortunate that we have a backup when we have those 2 ponds there, that if there is something back to back to back and there's a problem, we have those ponds that will be ready to hold water.
So the point you just talked about here, that's going to discharge below that's going to go down, it's already left the property, it's heading downstream or no?
That's going to leave the property. That's leaving the property. Do you want to zoom out a little bit? That leaves the property further downstream, right where the black line is. Okay, so it'll flow through some diversion channels that have stone check dams in them. We then go into that big sediment. That's actually going to be our final detention basin, but we're using that as a large sediment basin, and that's going to have numerous stone berms all the way throughout it, and we're leaving those in place for the whole life of the construction, and then once everything's established and grown, we can pull those out if we want. I mean, I've been on sites, I'm sure you have, where if you have check dams in the channel, you run through like 100 feet, and it's amazing after it goes through the stone how much clearer it gets, even without flock. And if you add the flock, it comes out pretty clear before it even gets into the basins and the traps.
Nick, you got below that, right where the property, I believe it's where the property is, that's where there's the fish, isn't that what?
No,
where-
the fish ladder's up in the middle right there by that.
Okay.
That's another control point,
Right.
right?
How was that sized? Again, tell me how that was sized. Your,
That basin,
the green basin, right?
That detention basin holds in excess of 10 acres, I believe. It's sized for all the stormwater that's coming from that side of the site. For the 100-year event, 100-year storm event.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sized for the 100-year.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I don't know what point you want me to chime in. I have a bunch of questions and comments. I don't.
Well, all right, you can come in now if that's what we're focused on. Go ahead.
Okay. 8 years ago, this commission gave a permit to Bristol-Myers to dredge that pond and clean it up it had a lot of aquatic plants. So that service was all Habitat Services, the guy that did that, the firm that did that. I don't know if you had a chance to chat with them, but they drew down that pond to achieve that in the dredging process. So they might know how that pipe works and how dirty the bottom, whatever. I'm just saying that's something that's out there. But more important than that, every time, I'm sitting here and getting confused. Every time I go to Bristol-Myers, that spillway, the water's flowing beautifully over that spillway. This is not a finite system. When you stop that off and make that a sed basin, that's great, but the water keeps on coming, the clean water, the water from the rain events, the water from the groundwater that's discharging to that giant swamp, that 60-acre swamp. It all keeps coming every day. It's not like it's a finite system, so I'm confused. Are you getting what I'm saying?
There's not always always water flowing into that. You saw that the Muddy River was dry this summer. I mean, we're going to be taking apart the storm drain pipes when we demo the site.
You're right.
We demo the building.
In the driest month of the year, August and September, August, when we did our sidewalk, you're right, Muddy River is pretty dry. But most time it's flowing beautifully over that spillway.
But we're going to draw down the water all the way first so that we have storage. And then as it fills up with clean water, we'll meter it out so that we have the ability to have that extra capacity if there's a hurricane that's projected. Usually, luckily, most of the time with big catastrophic storm events, we have some warning that they're coming. Okay? So we're going to make sure that our controls are secure, we have that contingency plan, and that those ponds are drawn down. I mean, there's going to be water that's going to be flowing into them, presumably clean. And it's going to be metered out. It's not going to be this 30-inch pipe that's just going to be opened wide up and all of a sudden all this water is going to swoosh down. Once we get it drawn down the first time, we can then look at what we have before we start construction and see if we need to put something over the top of it, okay? So that we don't worry about sediment rolling down into the 30-inch pond. But the first step is to draw it down and then make sure we can let clean water out slowly.
This idea to use the large pond for sed basin was relatively new. Maybe a month ago, we decided to do it. Different people wanted to do it. Okay, so my question, are those new calculations, were they submitted? The new calculations that factor in the new idea to use this large pond as a sed basin?
We're not using a large pond as a sed basin. It's a backup. Everyone's been worried if there's some major storm event, we have to protect the downstream resource. All of our upstream controls are sized appropriately. The other detention basin that's going to be permanent down the road that we're using temporarily, everything's sized appropriately. We don't have to draw the ponds down. We're choosing to draw them down as an extra measure to protect downstream resources if there's a catastrophic event. We're not intending for sediment to get into that pond.
Oh, okay, because I thought, George, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought the pond was going to be drawn down at the beginning of the project for the duration of the project.
No, they're gonna use it, they're not gonna leave it so that you've got, in a storm event, the ability for a large amount of water to rush through the bottom of the basin and pick up sediment and discharge it out. They'll choke it off at that point, and then allow the pond to fill back up, and then overflow. The overflow will be there. During the normal time you got water flow, you'll have flock logs in the pipe when it's partially open, but in the storm events, when we're getting a lot of water moving into that base pond, you're going to close it down and then allow it to fill up and then overflow the dam, where you've put flock logs on the top of the dam to pick up any sediments that might be in the pond. It's a big enough pond that if at that point in time your water's just going to fill back up.
We could keep it full the whole time. We're just choosing to draw it down so that we have extra capacity, so that we can protect the downstream resource from something.
So,
Aaron, I would be more concerned about the one they're gonna build, the green one, because it's gonna depend on them to have control of that, to regulate what's going on with the discharge. So the one that the backup, the one you're talking about with the 30-inch pipe, that's a backup for in case, which hopefully they'll never have to use it. But I'd be more concerned about the green one, because that one's gonna have to be watched closely, because it's gonna discharge right from the site. It's got treatment before it leaves, but once the water gets dirty and ready and silky, we're gonna have to make sure the storage capacity is large enough so that none of that water leaves the site.
All right. We'll keep moving a little bit. Dave, questions?
Okay. I think just to make sure I understand this, what you're saying, that the way you have designed and will construct all these upstream things, that should take care of the whole problem, okay? Because you're far beyond the book. Okay. But this is the use of this pond. That's when you get you get disaster, maybe the equivalent of Hurricane Florida, Florida North, and so this is see, you got the belt, you got the suspenders, I don't know, and then what you've done is you've sewed the pants to the shirt. Is that what you've done?
Yes.
Debbie?
No comment.
George, you mentioned in that team of people that should be involved in all the decision-making on this project, engineer. Did you mean
Yes.
them?
No.
But
Yes, B&L.
B&L. Should make mention of the town engineer being in that?
I think all staff are involved, but you had made discussion, and I made a recommendation that the town hire an erosion and sediment control inspector that's going to be on that site.
That's right, but in your list of people, I thought you had staff. I didn't know if you named out all the staff individually.
No.
Without the town engineer.
No, I didn't. Planning, Water Department, Aaron and Rob, will be involved.
Well, all I'm trying to point out is that I think, I hate to see the town engineer's name left out in a group that would be attending these meetings or pre-engineer or site investigation, pre-construction.
All staff that have been involved in so far would be involved in that too.
Okay, now, I've gone over this many times, not many times, but I've gone over this in length with Aaron. And listening to this conversation and listening to the application, and it dawned on me, or I had this feeling come over me, that this is not really a wetland application. Yes, it's a soil and erosion application. It's a construction application. Is the contractor going to be able to build this as designed? We're not impacting wetlands. If this was a flat piece of property, this wouldn't be, we'd be through this process. So we're getting involved in ourselves with a construction development to this. And what's going to determine if this thing can be built as designed is the contractor. There's the major weak link in this whole application. It's not your design, it's not George's design, it's not her concern, it's the contractor. Is he got 100 pieces of equipment that's going to get on this job instantly? Does he understand what needs to be done? Is the whole project going to fly like it should, like a real fine-tuned machine? You don't know that. We don't know that. So how do we protect against that? How do we feel comfortable that you're going to choose a contractor that is capable of satisfying the needs of this project? And in so doing that is when indirectly our wetlands get protected, but it's also more directly as the water supply to the drinking water supply. Because as you pointed out, from the wall to the wetlands, the upland review area, that area is nothing. You get the footing in for the wall, I guess you need the staging there. Which way are you running the block out? From the inside of the wall or the outside of the wall?
Away from the wetlands.
You're up from the outside of the wall.
Yeah, you're building.
That's how you're going to transmit all the blocks to the wall.
Well,
Use your mic, Marshall.
you'll probably be doing it both, depending upon the elevation where you're at.
Microphone.
You'll be depending upon the elevation.
Okay, but see now there's a case that you're going to use the upland review area, a lot of it is your roadway. Is that going to be good? Is that going to be bad? Are you going to be there? Are you going to be... But those are the things that are really affecting this. The runoff from the upland reviewer or the unpaved area, when this project gets done, is going to be minimal. The area is nothing. But it's going to be the construction. This is a construction project, a construction application. So do you have any input on the contractor?
If I might, Mr. Chairman, you had mentioned that at the last meeting. It was one of the concerns you at the end of the meeting. And certainly as a practical matter, I mean, the client is here, they can make representations to this commission. As I've indicated from the beginning, you know, one of the nice things about representing 5 Research Parkway LLC is the fact that they've not said no. I mean, everything that has been requested, they've complied. And I think the reason isn't that they're just overly generous. The reason is because they want to be a good team player. I mean, they plan on being here a long time. They've met with just about everyone within the town to try to give those assurances. And you've indicated correctly so that that's always a concern. It's not the plan, it's the implementation of the plan. And, you know, one of the things that I've learned from talking to my client, and again, they're here to address anything that the commission may want to know, but you know, this is a large project, as you point out. And so at the end of the day, there are very few companies that are of sufficient size to even bid on a project of this nature. I can tell you that 5 Research and its main owner has been talking to contractors since December, I think. And there still is no one yet chosen, because at the end of the day, they have to have a comfort level, as do you. But they have to have a comfort level. And one of the things that I've indicated to town staff, to your law department, to anyone who cares to listen, is the fact that we're willing to certainly communicate. And if there was a contractor with whom this town has had difficulty, it's probably not something that you need to publicly announce on the microphone, but you know, we're willing to certainly work with this commission, Planning and Zoning Commission, the mayor, the council. I mean, at the end of the day, my client wants this to be a successful project. They don't want to have the stigma that is attached to the one piece that we always think about. And so we are committed to getting the best possible site contractor who's capable of handling this site, recognizing what has to be done. And that's the reason why when we look at the proposals made by Mr. Cotter on an independent basis, when he says this plan works and proposes and accepts the I think very substantial bond that's been suggested by BL, The reason there isn't any pushback on anything that's been talked about is because we're looking to be part of the team. So are there absolute assurances? I guess anybody can do a bad job. But I think my client is committed to finding the best possible site contractor. I'll tell you this, I've been told, and they can represent it if they want, again to you if you don't believe me, it's not price. They're not looking to find the cheapest site contractor. They're looking to find the best site contractor. At the end of the day, this is a pretty good sized project. So they want to make sure that what's done there works. They want to have fewer problems just like you.
I would think in this project, the best would be the cheapest in the long run. The best contractor would be the cheapest to eliminate trouble-free in getting the project up and up. But you mentioned about that, and I'm not mentioning any names, it's not important, but there are contractors and they have different divisions, an A division, a B division, a C division. And I know of some projects that the job they did was definitely A plus. And then there's other jobs that are right down the other end of the alphabet. So with the same name on the door of the trucks. So it's a difficult choice. There's no question about it.
I'm not bashing B&L or you. The wounded bird here is going to be the wetlands. And I wish I could say you could put it somewhere else and then we're not concerned with the wetlands. In other words, they're safe. But I was there for the original, Bristol-Myers gave us the same $2 spiel about they were going to do it this way and do it right. And I remember going out on that site and watching that west parking lot wash down into the wetlands. And we had to go out there and tell them what to do with it because it was just a big cow patty sitting in our wetlands. So if you could assure me that our wetlands were going to be safe, you're not going to need to use them, and Michelle's got the design so that it stays off of the upland review or off our wetlands, I'd feel more comfortable with that. And that's the difference between Jim saying it is a construction deal because the contractor is going to be the guy that's going to, and it shouldn't be about money, it should be about doing it right. And George has been through it a lot. He makes good recommendations, and I trust his decisions. So I don't want to see another 20-year-ago thing happen.
And we agree. And again, I think we would have liked the commission to have accepted the representations that I make and BL makes, and I understand where you're coming from. And we recognize that might not be enough, and so at the end of the day, when the chairman suggests and other members of staff suggest getting an independent review, we don't start dickering. We say, yeah, we want you to have a comfort level. And so that's why George Cotter is here, to make sure that what we're representing to you actually is true. And I think at the end of the day, the comfort level, I mean, we didn't write his report. He wrote his report, and I think the fact that he's comfortable says a great deal. This is a fellow who knows the site, knows the red clays, knows everything about this town, and has appeared before this commission often, as has BL companies, as have I. But I just wanted to communicate to you and to the commission that this is a client who is committed. Maybe you heard the same thing before, but I'm not so sure that they were willing to go to the levels that we have, whether it's creating an erosion and sediment control plan that I've referenced as super duper. It's really a terrific plan. Having independent parties, inspectors review it, we want to be part of the team. That's the idea here. And there is a respect for the wetlands. I mean, that's been clear from the first meeting, I like to think, in our presentation.
I think also our experience, our company experience on recent projects, one right up the street a couple towns over where 50-foot walls, 45-foot walls, all along the edge of a wetland, huge cut and fills. We designed the erosion sedimentation controls, and it's built, it's open, it's operating, and we didn't have any breaches into the wetlands. So I'm very confident in what we've designed. Now we have to make sure it's followed through and implemented accordingly, and we all stay on top of the implementation.
But how big was the retention pond on that project? It looks like it was 3 or 4 acres, that retention pond on that site.
There was a big existing retention pond, then we added another retention pond, and then there's a massive underground detention system.
Well, I mean,
Big.
and you had a flat site.
It wasn't flat, though.
Well, it wasn't a Bristol-Myers, let's put it that way.
There's 45-foot wall on the top side, 45-foot walls, 2 on the bottom side. It was very, very similar
But
in
you-
the grading, in the
But
cut and the fills.
I still believe you had a larger retention area for retention than we have at Bristol. Dave? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I have to go back to something. I know we don't like to go backwards, but the George's report says on page 2, under erosion and sedimentation plans in number 1, he says that the erosion controls will be in and inspected prior to the start of the demolition of the site. The large pond and small pond will be drawn down by the drawdown pipe in the large pond, so the pond's going to be used as a sediment basin prior to the water leaving the site. That's what gave me the impression that that was the case, and also the responses, Beals' responses I got on October 1st, Monday. I haven't had a chance to look at them, but now I'm looking at them, and this is the write-up notes. These are the notes written up from our previous meeting on September 26 that we all agreed, and it also talks about the drawdown of the pond. So at this point, I'm very confused. It says the pond will be drawn down at the outset. So I'm very confused at this point. It's on page 3 of the responses. This is Beals' responses dated September 28th that we got October 1st. Page 3, if you go literally halfway down the page, about halfway down the page, it says, clearly note that the detention pond with the dam, that's the large pond with the dam, is to remain drawn down through construction. And you don't, and it says yes. So therefore, I was of the impression it was from the get-go from these 2 different documents. Now, that's where I got that idea, Michelle, that I was presenting before. I got it from these 2 different documents.
Can I respond?
well, what's the question, Aaron?
So now I'm left totally confused. Michelle's
Well, what-
position that the large pond will only be drawn down in the case of a huge storm where we gotta use it, draw it down to give extra storage capacity for dirty water. But these 2 documents say, one is George's document, said, no, we're gonna draw it down right at the beginning of the construction phase, right at the get-go, and use it as a sediment basin. So we gotta get that clarified.
I'd like to clarify that. We are going to draw it down at the onset before anything starts, so we know what we're dealing with a 30-inch pipe. We make sure we understand how we're going to open and close it and draw it down. We want to draw it down at the beginning, okay? So we draw it down. Water's going to build back up in that over time, okay? And then if there's another large storm event coming, we're going to draw it back down. But we have to draw it down in the beginning so that we know what the bottom's like, what the opening looks like. Is it 3 inches above the surface? Is it 2 inches above the water bottom, just to confirm everything and see what we're dealing with, so that when we know prior to an event, when we're drawing it down, we know how we're going to be drawing it down. It's not included in any of the calculations. It's not needed to be drawn down. It's the suspenders upon the suspenders, like we've already discussed. It's not intended to be used day to day for ENS control.
Famous last words, it's not needed. Trust me, it's not needed. Anyway, this is a public hearing. At this time, I will turn it over to the public for public comment and microphones and name and address for the records.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jim Wolf. I'm a member of the Economic Development Commission. Mr. Chairman, I would say that your commission has done a wonderful job of reviewing everything submitted. And I think George is right that this is a living thing. You can approve this tonight, and I'm sure you will, but it's going to continue. It has to be monitored, and I think you put everything in place to do it properly. It's not going to end here tonight, even with an approval. And you've set up the right situation to monitor, and I think you did a nice job. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Good evening, Joe Mira from EDC. I just want to clarify a few things. We mentioned Bristol-Myers 20 years ago. I started my career in a Fortune 500 company, worked my way up, and I know the mindsets of those executives. And I also know the mindsets of smaller companies since then. We're dealing now with a smaller regional company who has experience in building this type of product. This is not their first, as the saying goes, first rodeo. So as far as them picking a contractor, they have a lot at stake here. I mean, they have investments and what have you. So as important as it is to the town, it's equally as important to them. I'm not going to stand here and try and match which, as far as the drainage and et cetera. You guys got the depth and the breadth of that. But I do understand that we're dealing with people that are licensed and experienced. That means something to me. We have to rely on that. They have a lot at stake as well. So I'm in favor, as Jim says, you guys put the checks and balance. We're going to have a town selected check and balance on a day-to-day basis. I don't know what else we can do except follow it through. The deal is that the town follows through with the meetings and follows through with the person that they have on site and hold these people to the project. Simple. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Jack Aragoni, 18 Martin Trail. I live on the west side of the Muddy River and also Spring Lake, right where the river flows in. Been there for 43 years, way before Bristol-Myers, and I've seen a lot with the lake and the river. Some memorable events, widening of 68. The big one though was Bristol-Myers. It was a surprise. I didn't really know I knew construction was going on, but didn't really get it until the rain started. And you definitely know the story. Little different side note, I'm an ice skater. I bought the property on the lake because I like to ice skate, speed skate in particular. For the first 10 years there, I could look straight out my backyard, across the lake. I could look down to the right, down the lake, 2-3 feet of water. Now, you can walk across it when the water does go down during the summer. The reason I mentioned the skating is because for years I could go straight out my backyard. It would freeze solid. Brought all my kids out there for years, put the sled right on in the backyard and go. I can't tell you exactly how many years after Bristol-Myers, it doesn't freeze anymore. The lake does not freeze at that end. I have to walk down and I can get on the lake. I can give you some guesses. It's much shallower. I would think that would make it freeze quicker. I know the temperatures have gone up. I have a groundwater heat pump. I've picked up, the temperature has risen about 2 degrees over the last 30 years. But what I do notice at the interchange, I come down Williams Road and I'll be slipping and sliding on the ice and snow. When I hit 68, it's like a warm summer day. It's just wet. There's a lot of material being used on 68. I get on 91, same thing. The cars are flying. I know there's signs, watershed. I don't know that anybody putting material onto the roads pays attention to that. I do know that each additional building that goes in is adding to the ice melt. I talked to Aaron earlier in the week, I worked for Pratt. One building was 500,000 square feet. That was in Southington. And during the, I forget, 78, 79, the ice storms, the Civic Center fell down. We were frantic. Everything and everybody was on the roof, getting snow off, melting ice anywhere they could. I don't know, we weren't worried about drains or anything. It was just going into the Quinnipiac River. I then moved to the North Haven facility, over 1 million square feet. Same story. Once the snow loads start, it's not just snow, it's rain, it's ice, it's that mix that just clogs everything up. and you've got it on the roof, it's got to be removed. This new warehouse, it's a monster. 1 million square feet, that's among the biggest in the state. 500 feet deep, I understand, that makes it about 2,000 feet long, about 4/10 of a mile. Removing snow from that rooftop, never mind all the construction's going on, after whatever happens during the construction phase, that's behind us. I worry about the future. We just keep on opening up land or making the land more susceptible to winter conditions. And it's a warehouse, trucks. You need a lot of material on the roads for trucks. Light trucks, they'll slip and slide worse than a car. And then the roof run off. So that's pretty much, as far as Spring Lake, if they need some fill, they can come through my backyard, give you all the fill you want. The thing that bothers me the most, it was at the last meeting, there was a couple ladies that came up. They live right near the site, and they were worried about their well. For me, it's just a lake. If it's a brook or a lake, I can skate indoors. But this is their drinking water. It seems like something should be done to reassure them, not by you, but people do. If they want to be good neighbors, do something with this. They're going to have plenty of water up there. Can they hook them up temporary or something like that? City water. It's on the corner. Well, I believe it's on the corner. I see fire hydrants on the corner of Research and 68. So to get them water is less than the length of their building. So it's just that I don't think these people can sleep at night. They're worried about their well water. For me, it's just a place to go skating. So with that, I just hope, and I do agree with you. The wetlands are part of it, but I'm not sure that a warehouse is the proper use for that property. And I've noticed it's changed from the beginning of the year when it was going to be turned into, because of all the wonderful research and development around here and the wonderful schools, they were going to fill it up immediately. Then like overnight it changed, going to knock the building down. That in itself is, in my opinion, a big problem too. With what's going to, don't know what they did in that building, and I just wonder what's going to come down the brook. Again, it's not going to bother me. I did have my well tested in '83, again in '85, complete chemical analysis. There was no change. I should probably have it done again now, because it does take years for anything going on to show up in the groundwater. But, that's all. Thank you.
Okay,
Could
thank
you repeat your name? I'm sorry, I need your name for the record.
Jack Aragoni.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the public?
Oh.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to, for the record, we had 2 letters come in. The letter that came in last time, I think I failed to enter it in the record. And then a second letter came in, and I'm entering it into the record, basically on the same subject of wells, which, as we said before, that's really going to be picked up by planning and zoning, the whole matter of if there's blasting or potential impact to area residential wells.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of things that came in today, or you handed out today, more information. Where are you on this application? Where is water and sewer? Where is planning and zoning? Where is engineering? Because I think this is all part of our approval process. They want to be involved in the overall project, and I want a little bit of feeling that they have some form of comfortability that we're moving forward here.
Yes, and also I must say I've been here 14 years, and this is the first development project that we did have this interdepartmental conferencing on a project. This is the first one. In answer to your question, I have not gotten comments from the town engineer yet. I have not gotten written comments from the town planner, but I typically don't. But I did ask her today, and she said that they would not be moving forward with this project at the next planning and zoning meeting, which is October 10th, but they would let the applicant present. which I don't know if the team knew that. They can present, they will be asked to present on October 10th to the planning and zoning. And there's a lot of, the town planner said there's several things that are not quite
Well, that's
finished,
the town, yeah,
tied up.
that's not our issue.
Water and sewer has been intimately involved with this. Eric Kruger has given several comment letters. I think we're up to comment letter number 5, which I handed out tonight. That one was dated September 28th, but it came in at 4:30 and it was left on the fax, so you didn't get it in your packet because I didn't know it was sitting on the fax machine. So it's stamped October 1st, and I handed it out tonight. Then there's, I guess, my comments. My environmental planners report went out in the packet dated September 28th, and then I handed you one tonight, but sitting here looking at it, I'm sorry, the copier copied every other page, because my copier broke, so I'm using a different copier in a different department, which is set to do every other page. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I need to get you it's 7 pages. I need to get you corrected version that has every page and not just the odd numbered pages. And there's a lot of, in answer to your question, there's a lot of things that we've got to look at. Their boring log report came in Friday, not just one copy, and one copy from Mr. Cotter. I would like to see a narrative of that report. It's just data. It's just, there's about 100 boring sites that were explored, and so I still don't know, we don't know where the blasting or ripping would be taking place. I don't know if you're still interested in that, Mr. Chairman. You had said you were interested in a map that shows the areas to be ripped, the areas to be blasted. Maybe we don't need that.
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, what they've done the borings, and there's indications that part of the material is a sandy gravel material on the northern side of the property. Is that correct? You don't know. Is that correct?
Yes, all over the place.
What's that?
If you look at the log, it looks like it's pretty much all over the site is sandy gravel with that underneath that bedrock in some plot places and a hard sandstone in other places.
Then there's no red soil we got to worry about.
Well, that's a good question for the team.
Well, you just said that the site is mostly all this sand and gravel.
They don't use the term red in the report. They use the terms silty sand and,
Was it red silty sand?
okay, here we go. Well, I'm just turning point. Silty sand with gravel, red to brown. Silty sand with gravel, red to brown, loose to very dense.
Well, the point I was trying to make is if this is this sandy-ish gravelly soil, and that's the material that's going to be underneath the building in the parking lot, that's also, you're going to be draining roof drainage into that soil, correct? You got some drains in there. And I think that's a positive because if you took the other material, we'll say where they blasted the building down below, that product you wouldn't be able to drain into. It's not porous enough to accept anything. So I felt that the fact that even if the property is sloped, you're taking some of this gravelly and making half of the parking lot available to accept drain water, runoff, stormwater, roof drainage. The good thing about that report, it tells you, I'm sure it's going to tell you if you need to blast or how far down the red rock is compared to what your cuts and fills are. So here again, this is a construction site of this project. And we go back to being that construction site. But we got sidetracked again. So it doesn't, I don't think we're ready to vote on this tonight. But I do get quite concerned because every time more letters come out and more letters from the different staff people, Aaron and Water and Sewer, there's always this list of conditions. And this list of conditions, if we're not careful, could be 4 or 5 pages, and that's okay as long as you approve them before the next meeting. Because the last thing I want to do is sit here at the next meeting and go through every condition of approval, whether you accept, and have a discussion on every condition of approval. So I think we're finally getting enough reports from the different people, the different staff people, that the list of questions are narrowing down to a final version. Yes?
Yes.
Nodding your head, is that a
absolutely.
yes?
No, yes, absolutely. I think if we sit down and we could knock this out, it's tedious. We might take a few
Well,
meetings.
it's much less tedious in your office than this.
No, I'm
hearing.
saying that for us to meet with BL, and it might take a few meetings and to get it all cleaned up and maybe have, like you said, maybe 10, 15 conditions of approval.
No, maybe 4 or 5. I don't see 10 or 15 conditions of approval.
Is your 11th hour joy list that you usually give us the night of the vote, has that been done?
I'm sorry, is my what?
The list that you always come up with on the 11th hour,
Yes.
you've got it, it's already been published and they've answered all your questions? They've addressed all your concerns so that,
No, oh no, I haven't reviewed the materials that were submitted last week. They submitted 15 documents last week that you got in your packet. That packet you got, I haven't looked at that. Really, I've been concentrating on George's report and some other things.
all right, I'm just looking at the water and sewer review here and Mr. Kruger's saying that please note that the Wallingford Water Division has not entirely finished its technical review of the wetland permit application at this time and will issue additional comments and questions as the review process continues. He's had 60 days of our review here, at least 60 days, if not more, to make his joys and concerns to you or to us, and he hasn't expressed them. So if he has any joys or concerns, I believe he should do it at planning and zoning or what other group is going to be involved with this. I think we've waited 60 days for his comments and we haven't gotten them, so we're not going to get them.
Well, they did hand in a bunch. You're right. So he handed in a number of conditions of approval, suggested conditions of approval.
Okay.
He just got all the material you guys got Friday night. He got that Friday night as well. So I think that's what he's referring to. He's going through it. He's maybe halfway through it. He probably has to go through the other half.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't think we should wait another month for Eric's comments because he's had 60 days to look at the prints or to review the prints and come up with things that he has concerns with. So he's got planning and zoning. You need to go to planning and zoning?
Absolutely.
All right, so he can jump on the wagon with planning and zoning. So I don't want that to be a decision here tonight with the Wetlands Commission. We need to hold off because Eric hasn't expressed his concerns. Does that make sense, Aaron?
Yes.
Eric and Aaron.
That's cute. Bond. You've seen the numbers associated with the bond from George's report. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen the memo from Janice Small regarding the bonds.
I am.
You have. So you understand that and I'm in total agreement that there's one bond for the town of Wallingford. It's just a problem in trying to break apart the different pieces of it. Because even though the bulk of that bond talks about being erosion control, but that's a planning and zoning authority, probably one that we'll end up being responsible for. So here again, that's another thing to discuss. It's very possible that that whole face value will be the wetlands bond, and then there'll be another planning and zoning bond, and then say later, everybody will get together and straighten out the bonding amount. So as long as we got that item cleared up. Okay, you look concerned, Aaron. What is the issue?
No, I just don't know if I sense we're drawing to a close for the evening, so I've got a bunch of details, but these, I can work them out with a sit down with the applicant.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, may I? This is, and you know, we've been through this quite a bit. There is always more paper. I mean, there will always be more paper, and I honestly don't think that there is a final resolution 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I don't. I mean, I think the last time we were here, we had asked for a vote, and we made our presentation, we've submitted all the plans, and you suggested, as it turned out correctly, to have Mr. Cotter or somebody independent review the erosion and sediment control plan. It was limited to that. You indicated in the minutes that you were pleased with the erosion and sediment control process, but you wanted to make sure that it was reviewed independently. And so we waited the additional 30 days, and George's report came out, and my client has accepted all of the suggested conditions that he's placed in that report. So I think it's actually a better plan 30 days later. But I'm not sure there's much else to do. I mean, we've completed, you know, we've made the presentation with the effect of the wetlands. We've taken the wetlands fill area, reduced it from 2,465 square feet to 450 square feet. We're mitigating it by creating over 5,000 square feet of new wetlands, so 12-to-1 ratio, which is, I suspect, unheard of before this commission. Usually it's 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. We've reduced the overall work within the upland review area, again, in recognition of the sensitivity of the wetlands and also trying to be, you know, the good owner. This is the plan that has to be, I mean, we have to move forward. My client has told me very clearly they need a vote. It's not something that I often ask for, but again, I'm here to tell you that we're prepared to accept all the recommendations made by Mr. Cotter. There is a letter from one of Aaron's letters, September 28th, in which she has possible conditions of approval. She had listed, I think, 13 of those conditions on that, and other than number 5, which was seasonal limitations on work activities, we'd leave it to the weather and all the staff working with the site contractor and the owner. And then she had also, I think, provided in her suggested conditions of approval more authority to the erosion and sediment control inspector or examiner, whatever you want to call his or her role, more than is permitted according to Janice Small. In her memo, that same memorandum, she indicated there is a certain limitation. You don't want this town designated person to make decisions. You want him or her to be able to, excuse me, be informative to the town and make sure that the town exercises its proper authority. So, other than those two conditions of approval that are in her report, on her list, you know, we're ready to move forward. I'll also say that we have received from, just as an aside, from Planning and Zoning, we've gotten comments. My understanding from Mrs. Hand is that there's an interest in providing us with a comprehensive list so we can move forward. The problem is, as you probably know, is that applicants are not normally permitted to address P&Z until you have a vote from wetlands. We can't delay any further. My client is pleading that we get a vote tonight, and we think that, you know, based upon everything that we've provided you, the conditions, all, again, incorporating all the conditions that are in George's report, establishing a very significant bond, more than I can recall, frankly, but it's a bond that BNL actually recommended. Again, we're trying to be fair, reasonable. A plan that has, as your independent examiner has indicated, is sort of above and beyond what you typically would find, because it's a sensitive location. I mean, we've done everything, and what happens is, as the time goes by, it's like, you know, there's always more issues, and I suspect there always will be. And I think to the point of your monitor, it's the fact that this is a living, evolving plan. I mean, if we were to prepare, for example, let's just say that one of the suggestions that Aaron made was to prepare a more complete contingency plan for the 1 million contingencies. I mean, how big, how much paper do you want? I mean, at the end of the day, we've agreed to your suggestion of having and paying for having someone on site to make sure that we do a good job. I mean, that's pretty remarkable, and we're trying to do everything that this commission has asked. We think we have a plan that was terrific before, even better now, and it's designed to meet the concerns of this commission, which is to protect the wetlands and watercourses. We think we're there.
Well, I found a couple of things interesting in your statement. Look, you're indicating how much the plan has improved in the 3 meetings you've been here. Just think what a 4th meeting will do for you.
Nothing.
You sure?
I'm sure.
Every meeting has come along, you've improved at every meeting.
I'm not so sure, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I'm not so sure there will be a fourth meeting.
Well, Nick?
My question was, are you going to take this home and throw it on the shelf till next month? You're saying you're not going to change anything, what you've presented us, what you're going to run with that? Is that what you're basically saying? Because I get the impression
Yeah,
that...
I think that's a fair statement.
Now, Erin talked about a packet she just got, didn't have time to review. I'm not looking for that 11th hour shopping list, but should we be concerned that there may be something she can flag that need to be changed?
What's put in that, and again, the only changes are in the ENS plan, were based upon the conversations with Mr. Cotter. So I suppose we could have waited till after the approval and then submitted the plan. You understand? In other words, we've taken those conditions, and instead of waiting for you to make them conditions, we've incorporated them into the plan so that now you have a more complete set. Maybe we were a little too quick.
What I'm concerned with, Dennis, is that you're asking us to prove something, and it's almost like we're going to go to a game and we're going to wait to see who strikes out first. What's going to be the first mistake? Not to condemn B&L's design, but they did everything by the book. This is what the book said we should do for 100-year storm. We polished it up a little bit here or there. What do we have as an insurance policy that when we go to that game, you guys, I don't want to have the decisions made the day before the rainstorm or get into the details of it and then there's a heartache because, we gave you permission to go ahead and start this. It sounds like I'm giving you permission to go ahead and start this project, but there's a lot of things that are going to change on there, which I understand. I've been in the construction long enough, I know this. So I'm saying, do I want to sell my soul to the devil tonight and hope that, Mother Nature's not going to be the key to this whole thing and that everything's going to run fine? Is that what you're asking me?
Well, no, this is what I'm saying. You know that we still have to go through another arduous process, right? We still have to go through planning and zoning.
Right.
We come here because you have the jurisdiction of making sure that the applicants protect the wetlands and watercourses. Actually, that you do it, and we accede to your regulations and your requirements. So everything that we've submitted since April, when we started meeting with staff, everything that we've submitted is designed to ensure that. And then at the end of the day, when we think we've got a real good plan, it's doing all the things that we've represented over the past 3 meetings, in order to give you that assurance that you're looking for, a prudent idea was, why don't we have somebody independent? Not that we don't trust you guys, but let's have somebody who we trust, we know, independent, to review and analyze. And the chairman asked the question, does this plan work? Will it protect, or maybe it was you asked it.
I asked him.
Will it protect the wetlands? I think George answered. So I'm not sure what else we can do over the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days that's going to make it different. You follow me? We're going to have another person review it? At the end of the day, we've done it all.
But how can you assure me? I need to be more assured that this is the right way to go. And I don't know if George stayed up at midnight burning the candle late and he found something else. I don't know. I don't really know. This isn't something to take lightly, and unfortunately, all the other commissions follow. We're the first to say yes to go for it. I don't know, and I just asked Erin about the 11th hour. She had a list that if she had things that she had concerns, I could say, okay, we'll see you next month. But she doesn't seem to have that list of things that need to be addressed. But I'm just, maybe I'm gun shy after 20 years ago what happened up there, and maybe I should get over that, right? Because we're talking about 2 different horses here. We're talking about the horse 20 years ago, or are we talking about the horse today? So.
Yeah, I think part of what you heard from one of the speakers is the fact that, this is a regional company. These are people who are committed to the town. Maybe you've heard that before. At the end of the day, I think you have to rely upon the professionals who are talking to you, giving you the advice. You have a lot of knowledge yourself personally, about projects of this nature, and you've got an independent reviewer. I don't know what else we can give you other than to tell you that we're willing to work with this community in every way. So it's everything that they've asked for other than more time, only because it's not as if this is our first meeting, it's not our second. We've been talking to staff, to water and sewer, to engineering since April. And it really, I don't know what George's sense is, but this is a terrific plan.
Is our staff ready to vote, agree to it?
I don't,
Well, that's one of the people we're supposed to rely on, our staff.
and I know that there have been occasions where the commission has felt that they're prepared, that they've heard enough, and they're pretty comfortable. I mean, if you aren't, I understand that, but I just gotta tell you, I'm not sure what else we can do.
I'm not looking, I don't know, Michelle talked about, they designed by the book, the footprint. If she said, well, we did a 10% or a 20% overkill on this so that there's a buffer there. I mean, in the past with other applications, we had a fudge in there that we felt comfortable with. We know that if the 5-inch storm comes instead of a 4-inch storm, then that footprint is there to absorb it. And like I say, maybe because I'm just gun shy what happened in the past with the soils and the...
But I like to think that maybe she did say that, Commissioner Kern. I think that what she said is, the plan works without the final sediment basins. In other words, it works on its own. So that's the other 20%, 30%, however you calculate that number. And to Commissioner Parent's point, I mean, it is, I mean, we've made the representation, and I think George now agrees, it's the belt, suspenders, duct tape, and we've gone, you know, and so everything that you would want to make sure that this isn't 20 years ago, we didn't just put in, you know, the least we could think of and the least expensive plan. We put together, again, an extensive plan, one that I think last month the chairman indicated he was impressed by it. And so I think every action we've taken, every step that we've taken is designed to give you assurances. And the frustration on our part is, you know, we're just not, you know, are we not doing it? Because we think that we've given you every reason to have comfort after all the difficulties of that particular site. But this is a new horse, and they're prepared to do all these things. They've not said no. They've not negotiated bond amounts. They've not said that we only want the site inspector to be out there, you know, once every 3 weeks. I mean, none of this. It's designed to provide you with a protection. I mean, I had a conversation with the town attorney, and she's been very good about communicating. And one of the things that she mentioned to me was the fact that, you know, it's an important piece of property, and it's important that that the applicant understand its, you know, its value, and how to develop it. And I think hopefully we've given that comfort level to the majority of the town officials and the town folk, because, you know, we're here, we're committed to move forward in a way that's going to protect that site. And we've done everything that reasonably and above reasonably asked of us to make a plan that's really, and again, it's not, I'm just a lawyer, but the engineers are telling you it's a terrific plan. I mean, it's going to work. I don't know what else, you know, I'm just not sure what else we can give you. I mean, I will tell you that we'll communicate with you in terms of site contractor selection. We're willing to participate and have an ongoing dialogue. But
See, I don't consider these special things that you did for us. These would be things that you, as to keep your integrity, you need to do these things. Michelle's integrity to the design work. These are things that should come natural to you. You don't need to be telling me that these are all the things we did for you to make it good, because that should be part of your package.
That's not what I said. What I said is we went above and beyond in terms of the things that you require by your regulations. You don't require an independent monitor per your regulations. You know, whatever you've requested, we've exceeded to. That's my point.
And the thing with the bond, that frightened me, because why are you offering such a $300,000 bond on a project like this if you were assured yourself that it wouldn't be needed? Or I'm just, okay, we're just talking.
Give you assurance, that's why.
Yeah.
Thomas, Dave? Debbie?
This is my drinking water. I think we can't spend enough time on this. I agree with Erin. She's not ready, then I'm not ready.
Ally?
I don't have anything to add.
I've been on the other side of this table, and I've waited. I've had my meetings postponed for a lot less reasons than going on here. I had one meeting postponed because the staff just didn't have time to look at the plan. So I've been there, and I know that kind of frustration, and it's very, very disturbing to the applicant. But this application, the size, the magnitude, the town of Wallingford, do we need a warehouse in Wallingford? We have 1 million square feet of building there. It's not functional, I don't know what you're gonna do with it. But do we need a 1 million square feet of warehouse? Take one down, replace it with the other, maybe some more people will come back to work. That's all fine, that's good, those are good things. But right now, I think there's just too big a project to take that risk.
What are you looking for, with all due respect? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for, like, all applications.
Yeah.
The flood of documentation at the end of the month is always an issue. And I don't care whether it's the third week that you get what you need or the first week you get what's requested. It goes back to that same flood of information. I mean, she had things that she hasn't even looked at from last week. We've got things that came in today with items to look at. I mean, why print them up if we don't have a chance to look at them? I mean, this goes back to the same thing. We've got all this information to try and digest, and just to say we rely on a lot of faith of your engineers and of course the lawyers telling us the truth, and our engineer George. I mean, we operate on a lot of faith because we are just volunteers. We rely on staff, but staff hasn't had a chance to make any comments on it on the last round of information. I do give Water and Sewer credit. I understand he has probably generated a half a dozen memos regarding this, and some of the stuff is boilerplate, but there's a lot of information that he took the time to put together, and indicating, now you don't go to Water and Sewer for anything. You rely on Wetlands, which is kind of a new thing, and Planning and Zoning, and they handle the water side of it. So you ask what I'm looking for, or what do I feel for it? I think that's the comfort level, that all the documentation is in order, and yes, all the conditions of approval. As I say, I don't want 13 conditions of approval. 4 or 5 should be more than enough to deal with this meeting, because you should be able to take the time to get all those questions resolved. Because if we were to approve this tonight and go up and down that list of conditions, of course you've said we agree to all of them. That's a pleasant thing with an applicant, there's no question about that. But those are the issues. I feel much more comfortable now that George's report was in. Some improvements have been made, and just that double check and balances of what's going to take place. We probably wouldn't be quite as intense on this if it wasn't Water and Sewer getting into this about the drinking water supply. So those are the issues.
So it sounds as if you're looking for an opportunity to review the documents that have been submitted. I just want to make sure there's not something more that we haven't already provided.
I'd like to think not.
Okay.
That's why I asked about the 11th hour, because I wanted them to either be brought forward. And I agree with Jim. When we vote on this thing, there should be 2 or 3 conditions of approval, and it should go right through. All our homework is done, everything's been turned in. I'm not looking for another shopping list to give you between now and the next meeting, that here, these are the things that Michelle needs to work on for the next 30 days, because things have changed. But it's just...
That's kind of the package, or the issue, where we stand. I certainly have compassion for your client, not demanding a vote, but highly requesting a vote. But I just like to see all the documentation together. Erin puts her seal of approval on it. Are you ready to put a seal of approval on this application, Erin?
No, I haven't gone over the most recent stuff.
See? So I think that's part of the issue.
You know, one of the things that I've educated on is other towns go sometimes a year or 2 years on a simple application, and how they can drag it out that long. And part of me says tonight, where are we going with this? Are we turning into one of those towns? And when you tell me you're gonna take it back and put it on the shelf for another month, that makes me feel that's just what we did. We just, we're dragging it out. And I'm hoping there's something between her 11th hour short list and something that maybe George can see that will change this project a little bit. Polish it just one more notch to make it work, that I'm gonna sleep at night when it rains 4 or 5 inches and we're not gonna have a problem up there at the comfort zone, when you talked about comfort zone. So that's basically.
Mr. Chairman, I need to point out that if we are going to continue the hearing to November 7, that we need to request an extension from the applicant, because you're only allowed a 65-day extra, and that'll take us to November 7th exactly. In other words, I failed to ask for it on September 5th. We should have asked for a 35-day one on September 5th. Now we have to ask, if we're going to go to November 7th, we have to ask permission for the extension of the applicant to November, to get us to November 7th by statutory timeframe.
Well, I get a feeling that the commission is not really ready to vote tonight, so I think a request for an extension is in order. I'm not sure we're going to get one at this time. The commission is asking for a request for an extension.
I don't have authority, Mr. Chairman. My client is here, perhaps if I'm given a minute, I can talk to my client.
Sure. Would you like to take a recess?
I think not a bad idea.
Okay, why don't we take a 5-minute recess? Okay, we're back from break. We can continue on. I think the applicant had the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, thank you for the short break. 5 Research Parkway LLC Wallingford LLC will consent to the extension of the public hearing to the November meeting in an effort to continue to try to meet the concerns, legitimate concerns of the Wetlands Commission. It asks respectfully in return that you direct your staff to provide us with a list of proposed conditions within the next 2 weeks, so that we're not up against the deadline before the next meeting because we believe, I've checked with BL companies, we've submitted all the plans, responded to everything that we're going to provide. We are complete in our plan. We'll take another look at it, but we're complete in everything that we've submitted, so just a question of reviewing it internally amongst town staff, and hopefully, you know, this commission and the applicant can get a proposed conditions, so we have an opportunity when we come back that we're not at the 11th hour looking at the things that we haven't had a chance to discuss.
You have a comment, Dave?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're understanding what you want. And maybe, give us the 30 days, if we're going to do that. What you want within a week, 2 weeks.
I think 2 weeks is too much.
I think 10 days, okay? What you want within 10 days is the complete list. Or you could almost call it the complete agreement. This is what the issues are. Once you answer those issues, right, you'll have, you're gonna have to scramble to do that. That's it. That there will be no more additional questions, no more additional concerns. We will have, and we will fully expect to have an environmental planners report going out in the mail to us so we have it ahead of time with a recommendation. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, we're looking for the environmental report with the conditions of approval in a short time frame. Reasonable.
I think you're on the right track, Dave, but in the way you're describing it, if Erin should have all the information she needs. They have supplied her with everything that she's asked for. So at this point now, she should, within, I think, 7 days, be able to review the plans, and at that time, in 7 days, submit BL, these are a list of conditions that are needed. I would think BL, within another 7 days, can either review the conditions, approve the conditions, deny the conditions, and straighten out the conditions required by Erin at the 14-day mark. And that last 7 days, because there's always something comes up, but in that last 7 days, a final draft of documents that is needed for, I'm going to say approval, but I'm not saying approval. Does that make sense, Erin?
Wait, say the last.
There should be, within 3 weeks from today, you should have a final document that you can say, yes, I approve this. These are the conditions that I approve. And they approve. Okay?
Oh, okay, I understand what's been said, but the focus is all on conditions of approval.
Well,
I would like, what I mentioned about an hour ago, I would like a sit-down with the BL team to say, what did you mean here? Why did you say that? You didn't answer that.
well,
What did you mean
you've got
when you said
7
that?
days to do that. The first 7 days you have to do that.
It wasn't clear that they were making themselves available for that kind of back.
Oh, I think they'll make themselves available.
Can they confirm that?
What would you like them, how would you like them to confirm it? Do you want them in your
Tomorrow,
office?
Friday, whenever you want to meet.
Oh, okay, no, I
You want
wasn't
it-
sure if they
You want them in
had.
your office tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock?
We'll be there.
Because I know they'll be there. So within 7 days, you should have any and all questions for BL companies there, done, resolved, not resolved, but in
Yeah.
place. And then they have 7 days to resolve them, and at the end, then that's 14 days, and at 21 days, there should be a document that says, yes, Aaron, yes, Mr. Chairman, I approve this plan.
I think that's possible as long as they understand that it's not just conditions of approval. It might be,
Aaron,
please answer why you did this over here.
Aaron, here, this is something that should have been done already. You can't keep going and going and going and going.
No, when they responded to my comment and I don't understand the response, I need them to say, what does that mean? I need
Well, then
some
you need
feedback.
them there tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. That kind of thing. This has got to be a top priority to resolve the concerns that you have.
Tomorrow would be great. I'm trying to remember what I'm doing at 9. I'm doing something. I can't remember what it is.
Call me in the morning, Erin, and
I
we'll.
wouldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. All right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So is that direct to staff, Mr. Applicant?
Yeah, that's what we're looking for, thank you.
Jim, I want to ask you, are you telling B&L to educate Erin on what they want to do in this project because she doesn't understand the questions? That's what I just got from this conversation. There's questions you've asked them that they've come back with answers and you don't understand the answers. Is that
Yeah.
where we're going with this?
Well, yeah, some answers I don't understand.
All right, my question to you is, what questions do you have over the last 60 days that you've asked, they've answered it, and you're confused with?
Well, I mean, I could give you a silly one. Do you want a silly one that comes to mind? They're putting pine trees where George has asked them to put stone check dams, then for Casey, they're putting pine trees. So I want to know, you can't have stormwater running down into check dams and pine trees in the same exact location. So we got to fix it, something like that.
Okay, all right.
I mean, that's a simple one, but like I just got clarified tonight about the drawing down of the pond. I didn't understand that, so now I understand that a little better.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure in 14 days, you'll understand everything much better. There'll be no questions unanswered. Okay?
Got it.
So, one more chance at the public. This is a public hearing. Is there any other comments from the public? Now, I just want to repeat that these are wetlands issues, so they're wetlands comments.
As far as it goes for EDC, we look forward to this thing being resolved next week. Thank you. Next month.
Okay, it's not closing the public hearing, it's continuing the public hearing till the November meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. You're removing that? You're moving it, good.
That's serious, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. It's just that, that's where I look at the applicants that way, and I get. Yeah, oh yeah, get it out of there.
Thanks.
Aaron, while they're doing that, planning and zoning used to take applications simultaneously with wetlands, but not make a decision. Has that policy changed with planning and zoning?
Yeah, they've tightened up on that, yeah.
So they don't even accept an application until wetlands has approved it?
They don't, typically, the applicant does not present until wetlands is done with it, yes. They made an exception for Tractor Supply, I understand, so occasionally they make exceptions.
They make exceptions, so they're selective on who gets that privilege?
I don't know why Tractor got it, I don't know.
Okay.
Wasn't this whole scenario about staff meetings on Wednesdays was to get all the boards together? I don't want to call them boards or commissions or whatever, planning, public works, fire department, everybody together, and you guys hashed out the application?
We still do that, yeah, every month.
All right, so then, where is the void between the meetings you have with them and being able to complete something in a 60-day time frame? Is there that many things at the round table that you have to discuss it? I'm trying to figure out where the void is in the system. I thought that was the reason staff got together on Wednesday mornings, once a month or whatever, to go over pending applications, so that it would expedite and get them through quickly and without dragging their feet.
Yeah, but it's all focused on planning and zoning. They host the meeting, it's their meeting. So
Right.
we all focus on the planning and zoning applications.
So you address your issues at the planning and zoning meeting and
Yeah.
wetland concerns?
I don't get into much detail, no. They just want to know very cursory information for wetlands. They focus on traffic, we kick around traffic, sewer, where's the fire hydrant going to go, that kind of thing, more. But I'll be asked for the big picture with the wetlands. What's the big picture? What's the worst, or what are your concerns here? Name 3 concerns on this site, something like that.
Okay.
Okay. We'll move down into new applications, and this is 18-9.2, 155 East Street, Fergie Management. This is a request for administration approval, which was granted on 9/5. This was just to put anchors for a silo. They're putting a fertilizer silo in, and it needed anchors into the upland review area.
One of the
One of
4
them was
anchors
the
was
upper
in
reviewer.
there.
Aaron and I discussed, I think probably what's sticking out of the ground, like an 1.5-inch rod probably as an anchor. Anyway, it's a small area, so unless the commission had some issues with it, Aaron and I decided that it could be handled administratively.
And now we have the second Ferdy application.
Right. But I'm just wondering, that doesn't really need an approval, it's just an
We
informative.
already approved it. The first one was, we handled that administratively, it's done.
You and I did.
Yeah.
Do we need any support from the commission? No, because it's
No.
already been done.
Right, actually, you mentioned it at the last meeting. It wasn't on the agenda, but we chatted about it at the last meeting.
The second application is A 18-9.3, 155 East Street, Fergie Management Corp. This is a hazardous material storage cabinet that was designed for inside the building. And I thought I heard that it was the size of it precipitated a different permit or a different insurance or something involved. With that being, they moved it outside.
Oh dear, oh dear. Mr. Chairman, Roz has just pointed out that her application has been skipped.
Where's her application?
F, old business.
Oh, 6 research, I'm sorry, I read it as, I apologize. I saw Research Parkway and I read 5 research. Must be the eyes or the age or something going on there. This will only take a minute, I'm sorry. Okay, this, I'm not even sure you need to roll out the plans from what I understand. From what I understand, this building, you moved it from inside to outside.
We put it on a pad out here.
You put in a pad out there.
Wetland review area, it's not.
It's outside of the upland review area. I'm not even sure why we have it, but I think the fact that it was outside the building and it's a hazardous material, they gave it to us to vote on.
Yes, and if there's a spill and it's raining, it will go into the storm basin. So
And the
that's,
storm drain system will take it to eventually a wetland.
yeah.
It's eventually going to go into the same, we had the same discussion on the storage area.
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And name,
Should be on.
Okay,
Name for the record.
yep, Larry Edwards, professional engineer with J. Edwards Associates, Easton, Connecticut. We had the same discussion during the original application on the loading area that we had here in the back of the building. Basically, this is a self-contained, it's got its own spill area inside of the locker. So if something spills, it has a trap area, it's got alarms, it's totally self-contained unit.
It's a design unit for hazardous material.
That's exactly what it is. So we're proposing to put that on a slab out here. And again, it's right alongside of where the bulk storage loading was taking place before. And again, any runoff from this is going to come into that same catchment area that we had here. So, and again, it's 100 and some odd feet away, 104 feet away from the edge of the wetlands, so we're well outside the review area.
All right, so it's interesting, it's outside of the wetlands, it's outside of the upland review area, but if there was a spill there, it would have go into the system. Administration approval? Go ahead, Nick, I'm sorry.
Is it a waterproof cabinet?
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah,
totally
okay, sorry.
watertight, yeah, steel. It's,
I'm glad you brought it, because of the fragile area down there, I'm glad you brought it in front of us. Yeah, I don't see a problem with it.
Okay, Aaron, it's been approved administratively. Do you have any questions for it?
No, but I'm just saying that that's how, that they asked for administrative approval.
And we just granted them.
They brought 2 plans, that's why you didn't get it in your packet. I just want to make sure you understand that. And they came tonight to make sure that was a good idea to go administratively, so.
And you agree that the plan is fine?
I agreed to leave it up to the commission. Either way, either we do administrative or modification, whichever way you want us to do it.
We understand that, but there's nothing in the plan, you're granting the plan approval.
Yes, and
Yeah.
planning and zoning will have a whack at it too.
Good. Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, now, under old business 18-9.1, 6 Research Parkway. That'll probably cost me 100 grand somewhere along the way.
have a microphone.
What's it? What?
Where's the
Well, the hand mic's on the desk over there,
Okay.
or the Bose.
In other words, there's a hand mic for you.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Rosalind Page, professional land surveyor from Winterbourne Land Services, 604 Centre Street in Wallingford, representing the applicant, who is 6 Research LLC. Just want to check that, as per the regulations, if we are skipped on the agenda, I think it gives us maybe automatic approval. Good
Well,
try. Good try.
Unfortunately, the staff recommends tabling this.
Right.
Right. Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
So you're tabling it?
Well, we wanted to give you a brief presentation and give you some ideas give you an understanding of what we're doing, understanding that we'll be most likely going to the next meeting.
Okay.
So, and with me is Mr. Michael Ott from Summerhill Civil Engineers. He's the design engineer for the project. So,
Remember, this is a Wetlands Commission.
yes.
Yes, sir. This on?
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'll make this very brief. We understand that you can't act tonight, and that you received the application last month, and as Rosalind said, we thought we'd just give you a basic overview. So this is about a 3-acre site on the other side, directly opposite Research Parkway from the previous application. A much smaller application, less complicated, I think, I hope. It is, the proposal is to construct an automotive storage facility. Our client transports cars, large car carriers. So large car carriers would come into this site, drop off cars that will be stored inside the proposed building. The car carriers might stay overnight in the large paved area on the site, and then take cars away again. But if we understand it correctly, all cars will come off the car carriers and be stored in the building. These are typically, we understand these are higher end cars, luxury type vehicles.
I don't think it's the cars that are going to be the problem on your site. I think it's going to be the trucks that bring the cars in.
They're large, as you can imagine.
And they're like all trucks, they drip here and there and that sort of thing. Drips.
Oh, yes.
So it's not the cars that are going to be dripping, because they're the high-end cars. It's going to be the trucks, and even in the high-end trucks are drippers, right, Nick? Yes.
Right. So what we've done, and to get right into it, what we've done in that regard. So there's about 54,000 square feet of impervious area proposed here. The building is about 10,000 square feet. The remainder is pavement, and the pavement area is very large because of the size of these car carriers and the room they need to be able to maneuver and turn around. So we have designed a stormwater management system. I've talked to Eric Kruger, is it, at your water department?
No, that's the water and sewer.
Yeah, and gotten all his requirements regarding stormwater management. We have designed a stormwater management system that includes the water quality components, oil grit separator, pre-treatment prior to a sand filter, and then to our stormwater detention facilities. Our system captures all of the impervious area, the entire 54,000 square feet of impervious area, prior to being discharged to the existing drainage system within Research Parkway. Stormwater from this site runs to the north underneath the driveway of the developed site right next to us. There's a sign in front that says Omni. It looks like an office building, I believe. And then discharges across the road to the east into a large wetland on the 5 Research Parkway site. There's a vernal pool that was identified by BL companies in their application in that wetland that we discharge to. All of our construction activities are outside of a 100-foot offset area around that vernal pool. So it's just our stormwater discharge that goes into that wetland. I should have said in the beginning, we have no inland wetlands on our site or on sites directly adjoining us. We are here, as you know, because of the large area of impervious surface, and we're within the Wallingford Watershed Protection District. So without getting into any more detail, I'd be glad to ask questions, but the basic idea is to have a stormwater management system that addresses water quality as well as the increase in peak discharge of stormwater runoff in accordance with the Water and Sewer Department's requirements and Connecticut DEP's requirements and standards of practice. And we'll be back to you again next month with all. We've received comments from Aaron last Friday. We received comments from the town planner Monday. We're awaiting comments from the town engineer. I've been working with Eric Kruger, so we hope to be able to address everyone's comments and come back to you with a revised, prior to the meeting, submit revised information to town staff and come back to you next month with a complete set of plans.
A little, in other words, planning and zoning is already, have you made your presentation to planning and zoning?
No, sir. Next week.
The interesting thing, and I love the fact that water and sewer is involved in this area because it is headwaters to the supply. But I think we were probably the most instrumental of a committee to create the sand filter because I think originally the plans up there, they were installing in-ground filtering, in-ground systems, recharge system. And with first flush going in the ground, that certainly wasn't what our design would have recommended because the first flush is being the dirtiest flush. We wanted to be able to process it and filter it and do whatever. So that's a good thing. Those are all good things. But Erin's given you a list of things that she's wanted, and have you got them to her?
I've addressed all her comments, and Erin and I met yesterday morning just to go over them. So I haven't submitted new plans to her because we wanted to wait and make sure we get the town engineer's comments in before we go to press on 12 sets, actually 12 plus 16 sets of new drawings.
Erin, comments on this plan?
Yeah, this went out, my environmental planners report went out in your packet Friday, so it was delivered to you Friday night. On the last page, it lists, 20 things that were missing from the plan. Then Mike Ott came in and we sat down and he got some information from our file from the Bristol project that is in front of us, because that's where this vernal pool is located. So when the stormwater leaves his site, it eventually goes to the vernal pool area. So he needed some more information, map information, survey information, catch basin information. And that's actually when I found out the catch basins were left off the Bristol-Myers submittal. So we got to get that fixed. And
what got left off? I'm sorry.
Some catch basins in Research Parkway.
Well, to me, it's important because the 11th hour question is they're going to, post-construction and pre-construction, what the discharge is going to be. Those numbers are going to be important because the applicant prior to you is trying to figure out how to stabilize that site to do the demolition and to put 1 million square feet of warehouse space. And so that should be relayed to B&L or whoever, that Roslyn can probably calculate out with that impervious area is going to be more of an impact across the street into the vernal pool, which eventually goes down into our clean water retention pond at the beginning of...
That's interesting, right.
Right, so I think
interesting.
that's something that should be passed on to that B&L so that there's no 11th hour question about the numbers are right with their calculations, because we're probably going to double the outflow from the parking area now to what's actually happened.
Well, he's got to retain the peak flow.
I contacted I know people at BL. I contacted them yesterday, so I'll be talking to them. Okay. But our site is so small that the peak discharge from our site will leave our site and enter that wetland, I suspect, long before discharges from the 5 Research Parkway site would get down there. So from a peak discharge point of view, I don't think it's a problem. I think the significant issue is water on our site as well as theirs, is water quality.
Right, water quality, and that water you're talking about, it's gonna go down into their number one pond. I'm sure we had discussion tonight about clean water leaving the site, so.
Right.
I mean, I'm just, food for thought is to let them know what the difference is in discharge, your calculations.
We'll do.
Okay.
We'll do, yeah.
Okay, any other, commissioners, any questions? Then, I guess we'll see you next month.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
apologize. Okay, application A 18 5 Country Way, grading for in-ground pool. Did we approve this one already?
No, I have it here. It's minor. They're going maybe 10 feet into the upland review area with the fill for an in-ground pool. So it's,
So you see nothing wrong with it? Should
I see nothing wrong with it.
the commission, anything based on Aaron's recommendation, approval? Okay, new application for a new hotel, 1175 Barnes Road, application A 18-10.1. I didn't open it up, Aaron. Where is it located? Near the other hotel?
Yes.
On the same site?
We approved an office facility there that they got started and then they went away, remember? And
It almost shares the driveway.
Yeah, exactly. So this is another hotel.
Okay.
And I just want to say one thing about what you got tonight. You got the rolled up plans, but you also got the application, And we got two applications. In other words, they messed up the name, so I just stapled them together. There's a little confusion. They don't own the property. They have an option on the property, so they kind of messed up some of the names, so that's why it kind of looks funny. I gave you two applications stapled together. They got the names right the second time.
All right. Anything windswept, or you want to get right down to violations? Probably get right down to violations. Cease and correct order for 55 Kendracky Lane, Quinnipiac Valley Center. This is a driveway crossing into the nursing home, and they lost 50% of it, and they have failed to do anything about correcting the issue. Apparently, they've had some engineers involved and got the prices they've got quoted. They haven't acted upon it. So Aaron is required to take the next step, and that step is to get a notice from us to do what?
Well, I asked the law department what the proper procedure is, and I was told that I should schedule a meeting to discuss with Janice Small going about an injunction, how you do that. So there's no and she said there's no specific action for you to take tonight. The cease and correct order still stands. So I will meet with her this week or early next week to pursue an injunction, how we do that. But I also will inform the owner, call me, tell me what's going on.
Well, whatever. You're going to deal, this commission is giving you authority to seek an injunction against.
No, you're giving me authority to start discussions in that way.
Fine, do it.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
Okay. All right. Now the second notice of violation is 99 East Center Street, Wallingford. Okay. Now, before the attorney for the applicant gets involved, Aaron's report on the the second page of the back page, I think sums it up the best way. I couldn't have done it better. In considering violation matters, this office always asks, would these activities been approved if the activities had been proposed in the proper manner with an application? So a situation, a violation like this, if this had come in as an application, would we have approved it? And I think that's our first step, because if we wouldn't have approved it, then I don't know if we need to go any further here. They got to come in with a different concept.
Okay. I guess my question is, what did they do? I mean, I've been out at the site. I've been out at the site myself, and it looks, somebody did something.
Well, what Aaron explained to me, and I think previous information, they have a yard there that they unload soda ash from railroad cars and primarily for the construction or concrete industry. And there's a building at the end of the parking lot, and to make their life easier, they decided just to go around behind the building and use up, and in so doing, use up not only the upland review area, but got involved in the wetlands to some degree. My feeling is that with that kind of activity, it's not going to end right where it is now. It's going to, well, there's another foot, and then another foot, and another foot. And I'm just not excited about giving up the upland review area, the old so-called buffer area, for this purpose. It wasn't needed, it was used, it was done before, seems to be more done out of a convenience item. But that's my opinion, that's my item. Aaron, have you got any input on it? And plus there's other issues going on with the piping underneath the railroad.
Well, at the last meeting, September 5th, David Lord, soil scientist, handed out a report he did. It assessed existing conditions and talked about, he presented in there a wetland restoration, he proposed to restore basically, I don't know, half of the wetlands and but leave the other half filled. No one has been in to talk to me since September 5th, or called me up since September 5th, so I'm still looking for, what's going to happen with that pipe that they monkeyed with. It was a town drainage pipe. The winter's coming. I'm concerned because the winter's coming. That drainage pipe...
What's going to happen? The wetland's going to fill with water.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, right, but that's only part of this.
Yes, that's only part of this.
The part right now is, would we have granted them to use 100% of the upland review area for a driveway? It's one thing to have a pool sneak into the upland and anchor a corner of a building, but a full-blown out driveway with snow plowing, with salting and sanding, right on top of the wetland, that eliminated the buffer. Right, Aaron?
Yeah, there also is a zoning violation.
Well, that's not our issue.
Well, they might not be allowed to have that loop around driveway behind their building anyway.
Well,
That's,
okay.
yeah, but you're right, it's a separate issue, okay.
it sounds to me like it's got to come out.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For your record,
Good evening.
Dennis Senaviva representing the applicant. To my left, David Lord, our soil scientist, and to my right, Marcus Podick from Godfrey Hoffman, our project engineer.
You guys aren't on a company uniform, are you?
I'm not sure.
It looks
No,
like...
because he doesn't.
Oh, I got it.
His is the highest plane. You're okay.
When we were here in September, Mr. Chairman, I tend to come back often to the...
It's nice to see you.
It is, thank you. It's nice to be seen. Your minutes of the meeting suggest that we were going to make a full presentation in November. And one of the reasons for that is because we had handed out, David Lord had handed out his plan, his remediation plan. We had to have conversations with the town engineer. I've had a conversation, as has Marcus, because initially, and I don't want to speak for Rob, he should be, he'll provide you his report, but there was some pipes connected in a culvert near the tracks, and he wants to know what was the nature of the piping that was done. Asked jokingly, was it cardboard? Was it, what was the materials used? I think Marcus has some answers for him now. Again, I don't want to speak for him, but in the abstract, he thought that that has the potential of being a positive thing that might have been done, probably by just happenstance, to be fair. David has a proposal, and again, I think the question that Aaron asks, so well drafted, as the chairman points out, is, would these activities been approved if the activities been proposed in a proper manner with the application? And you're suggesting no, and I understand that, but that's not what David Lord's plan suggests. It is to you know, make changes to remediate the site, and that's what we're proposing. Now, one of the things I had asked Erin was whether or not she needed a formal submission on an application, and I know she had talked to the chairman and was suggested either way was fine, but we're prepared to present this evening, or if you prefer, you know, as we had indicated back in the minutes of September, to come back in November, have an answer from your town engineer as to whether or not he, you know, what he thinks is the relative value of connecting those pipes, because that would have an impact on the final plan we present to you.
You know, it's a wonderful thing to get the piping the way it should be. It's a great thing to create some wetland somewhere. But I haven't heard you're taking this driveway out. Are you eliminating this driveway around the building? 100%.
I'm deferring to the gentleman who
That's
prepared the plan.
fine. I'm waiting for the formal response.
The plan that I prepared proposes to remove fill from 378 square feet of wetland along the north side of the existing fill driveway section. That was former wetland, flagged by myself back in 2008, and that is to be restored to its prior elevation and function, and it would be seeded and planted to a more viable wetland functioning level.
But the driveway still stands.
Well,
You're taking 386
we're taking
feet out.
378 square feet.
Yeah.
That's what we're taking out.
Yeah, well, that's not eliminating the driveway that doesn't belong, that you didn't have a permit for in the upland review area. So how are you going to get around that one?
It takes out, yes, it does not take out the entire amount of wetland that was filled. It does take out all of the wetland in the immediate area of the drive behind the existing structure.
Right.
It does take all of that wetland fill out. It's wetland fill that is closer to the railroad tracks that is
The bigger issue.
currently proposed to remain in place.
That's just in the wetlands. You haven't addressed the upland review area.
Yes, no, I was just talking about the
Right.
wetland. The upland review area is still there.
Are you looking for direction from the commission here to what we actually want you to do, or are you just?
Yes,
Okay,
fine.
is that where we're headed, Jim?
Well, how does the commission feel, Ally?
I would like to see the entire site restored.
Nick?
I had the opportunity in the last couple of weeks to go by there a couple times. As a matter of fact, one day there was a tractor trailer in there, he looped around by the garage and then he was sitting there jackknifed. And I'm saying to myself, why do they need so much area? He has 3 drop points that are there. He could drive in and back his rig up or pull alongside it. It looks like they rear load using a vacuum type system. And I just said that I didn't see any reason for this. If they had come and asked, would I have said yes? I'm not sure if I would or not. Because he destroyed the wetlands that Mr. Ward's talking about restoring, that makes me think that he's immune to any type of, you know, environmental impact. And then the other thing I caught was, I'm saying to myself, we're about a half a mile down the road is our reservoir. And there's, each one of these hoppers, there's piles of their product that they deliver. And I'm not sure what the breakdown of that, if it's limestone or what it is, if it's a hazardous material, or it's going to change the characteristics of the reservoir. But nobody has brought this up. Aaron hasn't said anything to Water and Sewer or DEP or whoever. So then my concern is the product that they're leaving on the ground in little mushroom windrows, is that hazardous to that area? So that, along with the destruction of the wetlands, makes me think that hopefully he's done his homework and that's not going to affect our water supply out there. So on the list of things that I'd like to see, find out about the quality of the product that he's dropping, if it has any impact on our environment. And then I'm willing to negotiate on a plan review area if he can show us why he actually needs it, because I've been in construction for 40 years and I don't see where he needs all that area to do what he wants to do with his trucks. So,
You know, interestingly, the genesis of this notice is that we filed an application to planning and zoning in order to expand the drive area in the front. Extend that retaining wall on the west side of the property. And it was then that during the course of the review that's done with all these applications by the environmental planner that she noted that there had been this fill. My client says it's been filled for a couple of years, that what he did is removed construction debris. Aaron, I think, believes it's a shorter period of time. In any event, you know, we can't, it wasn't a notice, it wasn't something where a neighbor complained or there was some other complaint. We came in with an application. So I don't think he's trying to hide. It was just, you know, turned out to be something that was inappropriate, unapproved. And so that's why he's retained the three before you. And we're prepared to come forward. We just need to get some answers, and I appreciate the direction. I mean, again, we've talked with the town engineer. I suspect we'll talk with Aaron. And we're happy to have the commission's input.
Dave, any input, any issues?
Yeah, I am definitely not sure what to do. Because I went out there and I don't know what was there before. I mean, it looks like somebody made a really nice yard, but the only thing is it a legal yard to make? So I think, I think there's going to have to be a lot of more presentation, a lot of more convincing, a lot of thinking of what has to be done. But I do get an impression, correct me if I'm wrong, you had a building there, right?
Correct.
And rather than move the building, which I don't know if you need or not or what it's used for, and so to accommodate the building, you went around it. Is that right?
He was cleaning, yes, to accommodate the building and to clean the area behind it.
Okay.
Marcus has that.
So the thing is, if you didn't have the building there, you'd be able to turn around, right?
Correct.
Or if you took this
You
building.
can turn around now. He just wanted to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, but you could turn it around, and I looked like the building is probably something that somebody could move and put somewhere else on site. I mean, it's not a concrete foundation on there, so it didn't seem to be.
The building has, sorry, Marcus Godfrey Hoffman. The building has been there for a long, long time.
Yeah, we understand that.
And as was, there was a large pile of construction debris, probably 6 foot tall, in most of your upland review area that is now filled. That existed. He cleaned a lot of that. Well, he cleaned all of that out because it was just concrete block and all kinds of, you know, asphalt shingles, all from a building that had been torn down by a previous owner. So he didn't want that there because he wants a nice clean site. He does care about the way his site looks, and so he started cleaning all of that up. The genesis of cleaning that up was during one of the storms. The very large tree that was in the back fell down, and so he started cleaning that up and just continued. Said, well, now that I'm cleaning up back here, let's clean up. In so doing, he felt rather than digging out some of the hill in the front, so that it was easier to turn the trucks around, it would be easier to just drive around the building, and then trucks don't have to back up, and backup sensors and all of that, disturbing neighbors. It would be easier to just
Okay, so then, okay. So,
I don't think he had any malicious intent or blatant disregard for the environment in mind. He just, you know, in cleaning up, I guess, was overzealous.
Debbie?
Well, I think anything that wasn't authorized should be undone. You should call before you do anything. Yeah.
wasn't there an old building near the old Grange?
Well, it was a feed mill at one time. And feed came in on the rail car and on the siding with bags, but I think it was a feed store. It was possibly a general store. The post office was next door over on the other side of East Center Street was the post office for East Wallingford. They have been known, well, no, I guess they unloaded cattle down at Route 5 and drove them home up Center Street, a little before my time, but the way the stories go. But no, there was other buildings there. There was buildings that backed up loading docks. There may have even been additional track sidings in there. But no, in the 50s and 60s, maybe even 70s, bags of feed would come in on rail and you offloaded them.
Because wasn't the building dismantled? People took the building for a post and beam and all the other
Well,
material.
it could be. The blocks in the back of the building that's there in the wetlands he's referring to are the old granite blocks from the post office when they built the new one. The other granite blocks or steps or blocks or foundation blocks ended up out there. After the feed store quit, a carpenter moved in, but not a carpenter that would have dumped all that demolition material. A carpenter that would make windows, and a real craftsman carpenter worked out of that yard.
It also looks like the elevation is higher than it was 5 years ago. So I'm not sure if some of that debris got buried and he just brought the elevation up to make a nice plateau for his equipment, which I'm not opposed to. I mean, it's just,
We're not doing our job protecting wetlands when they're in a situation like this is before us.
do we want to, if he came back in front of us with an application to do something in the upland review area, is that acceptable, or?
Probably not for me, but I only speak for myself.
Okay.
I just think that pocket of wetlands in the back there, especially with the blacktop, I don't know if it's blacktop, but the products that they're hauling, yeah, the products that they're unloading there, and one thing's running into wetlands, to lose the upland, the buffer area, the upland review area.
They're hauling gravel out of there?
No, the pavement is gravel.
Okay, because I say it's concrete, it's millings. Yeah,
It's not even
concrete. I believe the water comes down along that train track and it escapes under there and then goes across the street to where the farmer with the cows, right?
It could very well be on that, because there is a strip of soft, mushy area up through there.
I remember our environmental planner went through there with his boots on.
Ooh, yes, yes.
Mr. Baker.
Yeah, he had his shorts on, his boots, and he had holes in the boots to let the water out, I think. You remember Bob Baker, our first environmental
Yes.
planner? Boy, he was a good guy and taught us the rules.
I don't remember, where on the site was that relative? Was it closer to the railroad tracks?
No, it was further up.
Further up, but he was right in the railroad track, right, but in fact, I think he had a train coming that he had to move quickly
Oh,
or
okay.
something.
Because the area that I've looked at and that I actually flagged in 2008 that comes in from the north, that was part of the area that we're talking about tonight, was always a field. It was always either mowed for hay, or it was a little bit overgrown in 2008 when I did it. It appeared that the configuration of the wetland had actually changed sometime historically. Took a bend to the to the east, and then to the south, where it disappeared into a culvert and then flowed underneath the railroad track. It was not well vegetated. It was basically, looked like excess surface water fed through this channel. A comment was made earlier, and I'll just comment on it at this point. I've been out, obviously, to the site a number of times. The soil that is just to the north of the area that's filled for the parking area, drive area, shows no sign whatsoever of any water sitting in there. So I know there was, I don't remember which commissioner asked the question, but there's no indication that it's impounding, that the existing conditions are impounding water in anywhere, even where the wetland comes down and hits where the fill is. There's no indication that any volume of surface water is being impounded there, because the soils and the vegetation within that area are totally non-hydrophytic or wetland associated.
Are they virgin to that area, though? Are they virgin to that area, or are they material?
They're an extension of the vegetation that extends outside of the wetland and in the wetland to the north.
But nothing associated with the railroad brought in for track bed?
I didn't follow that.
It's not soils that was brought in by the railroad for track bed, for rail bed?
That much investigation I did not do.
No, but that wasn't the area that, it didn't show up that soil?
No, the extent of the material that was filled, I dug holes through that, the native or undisturbed soils, if you will, in that area, and did not find strongly saturated soil conditions in that wetland.
Is that presently the hay lot that's in the back there? Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the hay lot drains towards the area we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then historically, it moved to the east and then to the south into a culvert, which is now connected by pipe underground. But that water that flows from the north does not appear to be in any quantity that would change vegetationally or soil conditions at the terminus with the fill area.
Is that water discharge from the site into the city storm sewer heading down towards the Vietnam Vet Arc?
I only know of the culvert that was in existence in 2008, and that went in the direction of the railroad, and I have no idea where it went after that.
Okay.
So the water that comes down there now does not appear to be in any quantity that creates ponding conditions.
Okay.
That's really all I can say at this point.
Well, that's the scoop.
Yeah, I think we've gotten our direction, so we'll go back and hopefully have some answers from engineering. We'll meet with your environmental planner and prepare an application that's compliant with the commission's concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so can you confirm that the notices, can you vote that the notice of violation remains in effect, or are you ordering them to take it out? I'm a little confused what we're doing here.
Well, that's a good question. Let the violation stay in effect, and next month we'll decide a more positive direction.
All right, can you vote on that? You're supposed to vote on that.
Can I entertain a motion to make the notice of violations stay in effect, but in the November meeting, we will make a more direct equation or situation.
Okay. Mr. Chair, but that's not part of the motion. What you're going to do? Okay, here we go. Mr. Chairman, make a motion that notice of violation dash 988 East Center Street, Benchmark Land Development LLC, and Providence and Worcester Railroad Company, unpermitted filling and drainage alteration remain in effect.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Yes, yes,
Nick?
Yes.
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 Who seconded it? Was it?
Debbie.
It was Deb, okay.
Debbie always seconds.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
This was on Center Street, just to make sure.
Center Street.
Yeah, I said it then.
It's getting late, I'm sorry.
Dennis?
Thank you.
Dennis?
I'll catch him after the meeting.
All right. Anything else to come before us tonight? Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion the meeting be adjourned.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?